don't think they're dead. What's,
Eddie?
no, Eddie said, Mishu said that was,
There you
like,
are.
overseed. And,
Oh,
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to start off today, our April 4th,
It's
2022
still
workshop.
practically
First on the agenda is our
gotta get
capital
outside.
improvement plan, a 5-year plan, that the city manager will present again to us. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This first workshop item is just open for your discussion. So we had already reviewed the CIP plan with you at the last meeting. This is the 5-year plan for you to take a look at. We will be presenting this to you on April 19th to adopt the plan. The plan is not what you're approving for any bond for this year or anything else. It's just the plan itself. So the plan's broken out by department. I did go over with you a couple of the changes that we did this year as it pertained to the capital investment and purchasing department, where we broke out. We took all facility projects as well as vehicles, and we brought those in under all capital investment and purchasing. So rather than being spread out through all the departments. So that's really the biggest change on this. The other thing that we worked on with staff is, in years past, sometimes you see year 1, 2, really high, $13 million, $15 million worth of requests. Year 3, 4, 5, a couple $1 million worth of requests. We changed that. I really wanted staff to take a look at and building out that full 5-year plan, and so they did that. And you'll see we're pretty consistent across the board. We have a couple placeholders in there. We're really not certain what the cost will be. Some of those numbers are coming in now. Those are only for future years. So sometimes depending on a vendor or who we might be going for cost, they don't really want to spend the time to give us a number if we're 3 years out. So our team will do the best that they can based on some estimates we have, based on square footage, if it's a facility, whatever it is, to try to estimate some costs. I can tell you some of the facility costs that we have in here based on new numbers. They're projected way below. So, but you'll be getting some more updates on that, specifically regarding the public safety facilities. So you'll be getting some updated numbers on that soon. That's all I had to talk about for the citywide 5-year plan. This brings us from FY23 to FY27. Again, you'll get a full plan, including full details of all these items at your April 19th meeting. So you'll see all these items, but you'll also get all the detail sheets. But gladly answer any questions you have regarding the
these
plan.
numbers are low, you're saying.
I'm sorry?
These numbers are low.
Some of them are low, some of them are pretty consistent. Some of them, depending on what item you're looking at.
Facilities
Sometimes
numbers, I mean.
we budget the same amount pretty much for, like, what you allocate for, say, street paving or reclamation or one of those. That's our amount. We might do less roads because the cost might be higher, but that's usually the amount. But if you're looking at a facility or even some of the vehicle costs, anticipate those are gonna go higher. The CIP plan is just that, a plan. Basic number for us to look at. Really, what really comes down to is we try to keep the bonding at around $7 million each year. That helps with our budget when we take a look at, sometimes we can pass more in that first year, go for a higher bond, but that means that debt service is gonna be a lot higher that next year. We'll talk about that in a few minutes when we talk about the increase we did in the bond last year. We're seeing that this year with about a $600,000 increase in debt service. So that's a big hill to climb for us as we look at covering costs and trying to be sustainable with our expenses. So, yeah, Mayor.
Yeah. And you're probably going to cover this next time, obviously, when you're talking about the increase in bonding in the budget from last year. In future presentation tonight, do you have the retirement schedule for our past bonds?
So we can have that for your adoption plan, but we'll probably talk more about that in our next discussion of budget discussion. We have all the information, so we can make that available.
And just to be clear, so you're not going to be proposing in this year's budget a bonding of $13.7 million?
I'm not. You're going to get that in our next discussion. We're going to talk about the fact that we're at about $7,100,000.
Yeah, I just want to, got it, thank you. Okay.
That means some of those projects might then, if they're not funded this year, they might carry over when we update the plan, they'll carry over to FY '24.
Did you want questions on individual items now, or should we wait until next time?
If it's about the plan, let's do it right now. That'd be
Okay.
great.
Yeah, so on here, under Public Works, you guys have $70,000, $70,000 for Court Street sidewalks. Is that the downtown, or is that Upper Court Street? I'm just asking because I know downtown, you've got the brick sidewalks, and Upper Court Street, you have asphalt. And so I was just wondering, because I know that right now, a lot of times you see a brick sidewalk that needs a repair, and you see it repaired with asphalt. So I'm just questioning that.
Are you,
That's right. It's in front of.
oh, right out
front of
here.
Auburn Hall.
Yeah, so that's the 70,000 right out here. Part of that's part of the beautification plan for what's taking place right out front, but some of it is also some improvements.
Is that fee for bricks, or is that to change it to be asphalt?
Dan, you want to cover that? You want to come to the mic, Dan? That's what happens when you're in the audience, Dan. So,
It is not to transfer anything to asphalt, it's to redo the landscaping plan in front of here, new flag poles, new landscaping beds. So I guess it's not to expand brick anywhere, and it's not to replace brick with asphalt anywhere. It's specifically pretty much from Main Street to Mechanics Row.
Thanks.
other questions?
Yeah, Phil, what are those expenditures on the comp plan? Like 400,000 for
Yeah.
3 years in a row?
Part of it is to continue working towards the goals within the comp plan. Every year, we do allocate funds for that. Sometimes those might be a little higher depending on what we know might be coming up, but some of it might be, part of the recommendation might be something that's done on Washington Street.
Right.
And so regarding the gateway, so
Capital
some of those
improvements
funds could be a
related
capital
to-
move,
yeah,
improvement
from-
project for the gateway.
Got it, thanks.
Yeah, no, that's a good question.
I think
Because it's really not detailed, but it does come back before you. We don't just spend it without it coming back before the council regarding those projects.
I think last, Dana, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we talk about in the comp plan on transportation, making some changes to the intersection like Main Street and Academy? and-
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It's all through there.
Other questions? All right, we can move on to the next item.
That's you.
All right, so. Back up to the,
I need pull, well, Phil's pulling that up too. Just for some of the new counselors, just to remember, I mean, we do have, and Phil will go over that, the schedule of activities. You know, this is kind of that first orientation to everything. We're going to have much more time to go over, provide amendments, add, remove. Last year, we did some significant adding to the CIP simply because the bond rates were so low, and we took advantage of that. I think to very good progress too. Correct, Jill? I mean, we added some, but cheap rates. I think Jill got us a deal. If we need to add extra meetings, we can, if it comes down to that, so we do have that flexibility.
so let me just start with orientating you to this packet that I gave you. So you'll see in this, got a couple of highlights on the front page of this. One is your council, city council, you worked on a vision and you worked on your goals. Those are in here. I think it's important to go back. This is something that I do talk with the staff on as they're working programs into their budget. How does that align with the council's vision and the council's goals? So those are in there. You're going to see your vision and goals coming back to you at the next meeting. That'll be in another document like this one, but it'll also include full, the goal statements, completely vetted through staff, working on what we know is coming up, how it aligns with the strategic plan, as well as strategies for each one of those. So that'll be your working document for strategies. Will it be incorporating those 11 strategic plan final recommendations into some of those strategies as well? So you'll have that all broken out for you. Let's start right with tax levy. This is something that really for councilors, this is where you spend a lot of time talking about tax levy. What will the tax levy be based on what our recommendations are moving forward? So under the preliminary budget right now, and some things might change before the 19th, but right now, the city increase that I'll be proposing is a 5.69% increase in the tax levy. That is just city expenses as well as debt service. So of that $1,386,000, 600 and, I'll get it for you in a second. Well, $627,000 is for debt service. So you can see almost about half, a little less than half of that is just the increase in just other operating expenditures within the city. Intergovernmental is 10.57%. That number won't change in my final recommendation, so you'll see that. That'll be the number that I present before you. That number includes Auburn Lewiston Airport, LATC, LA 911, Lewiston Auburn Arts, LA Arts rather, and county tax impacts, which is the county increase, and I'll go over those in a few minutes with you. Go back up to the city increase. I should have said the tax levy increase is 5.69%, which then, if valuation stays exactly the same as what it is right now today, that means it would be a 67 cents increase on the mill rate. Intergovernmental at 10.57% would increase the mill rate to 0.22. And then for 22 cents, and then the school, we're still waiting on that. The mayor's on that committee. They're working through that. I have a meeting with the superintendent next Thursday to talk about the school's budget. Hopefully on Wednesday, we'll have a more definitive number on where the school is currently with their budget. And then we'll have that plugged in. Mayor, I don't know if you want to add anything about the school.
I mean, there's still a lot of moving pieces to that, as Phil said, so there's still work. But right now, it looks like worst case, maximum case is 42-cent increase to the mill rate. I don't have exactly what percentage of an increase that is, but 42 cents on the school side for an increase to the mill rate.
So we're looking at $1.30 increase to the mill rate this year?
About $192 for the average $150,000 house.
$1.32,
$1.31. So that's if that number comes in, and that is, again, before you take a look at it, decide what your recommendations are. So that'll be what comes from the school board and what comes from the city manager. And then it'll be up for you to take a look at and see what you would like to do with that. So right now, the total tax levy minus the school is 3.96%. CPIU is something that's in the charter that talks about, in the ordinance rather, regarding what can come before the council without needing a supermajority vote for a budget to move forward on appropriations. And that is at 5.7 or 5.9. And so we're at 3.96 currently. So certainly below the CPIU. So what I'd like to do now is just give you some details of what's driving this, how we were able to increase our revenue, and then also what's driving our expenditures. So within our revenue impacts, just under general revenue, we're seeing a $2,165,000 increase. That's being driven by a few moving numbers here. One is the Homestead Exemption. So, council, just so you know, some of our new counselors that are on, Homestead Exemption was not fully being funded by the state. The Maine legislature at the last session made some changes with Homestead and also state revenue share to bring those numbers back up to where they used to be. So even though they increased from 20,000 to 25,000 within your savings within your taxes as a homeowner, we're now up to the 25,000. The state is picking up more of those funds. However, as you recall, when Karen came in and gave the presentation regarding our values, means that the taxpayer is probably not receiving the full amount of homestead exemption because our valuation's off. So, and that's because we're below that 100%. So that is impacting those numbers, but it is increasing our revenue, our revenues. So those are increasing. State revenue share is increasing. Ingersoll has more revenue that's coming in. We've done some things with Ingersoll as far as moving them more under a department. They've been operating kind of as a special
Enterprise fund.
enterprise account. Thank you. So a special enterprise account. We've been shifting some of that. So that means that revenue that they're now increasing is coming under our revenue account. ARPA offsets. So as you've been approving certain things within the budget, some of those are coming in as an expenditure, but you're also seeing a revenue offset for some of that. So those revenue numbers look higher, but there's an expenditure offset on those. And then the last one is the fund balance contribution. The council passed recently was a change with what we keep for a fund balance. And one of the changes that we did was we said that we would be between 10 and 14% on fund balance. This past year, when we ended the year, we came in at 16%. So that means 2% we took and transferred into the general fund, and we kept the fund balance at 14%. So that was a decent number. It was a healthy year with our budget. So we came in under what we had planned on expending, brought more revenue in. A difference between revenue that we brought in and our expenditures left us at as a healthy fund balance. And so that 2% was shifted in. But we are at the max of that range at 14%. The other one's regarding Cdbg reimbursement of services. As you know, we made some changes within our Cdbg program. One of them is the new director that we brought in. Glenn has been spending a great deal of time with Jill, going over numbers, looking at what we have been collecting through Cdbg. One thing that hadn't been done in the past is the fringe benefits for the staff that are assigned to Cdbg hadn't been coming back into us as a revenue from Cdbg. So Cdbg had been allocating what they believe would be their revenues for programming, but at the end of the year, those expenditures weren't shifting over into Cdbg for reimbursement, and that equals about $300,000. So that increased our revenue, which was a great addition, as well as EMS transport. We're estimating about $100,000 increase in EMS transport. That's been projecting. We're still I believe we're being conservative. We're being conservative on all these numbers. So that's really important for Jill and I as we sit down and take a look at these numbers to ensure that we're not bringing something before you that we're not going to achieve and be able to hit. So we try to be really conservative. We took a look at the numbers that the state gave us regarding revenue share. They probably adjusted those 3 times, I think, before they finally came forward with their most recent numbers. Jill and I both felt like they were pretty high as far as anticipating what we'd be seeing in state revenue share. We brought that down because we just felt like we needed to make sure that we were conservative and not estimating that full amount. Questions about revenues before I move on to expenditures? Yeah, Counselor.
On the Ingersoll, why do you feel it's better to go this way than leave it as an enterprise?
Jill, can you talk a little bit, do you mind coming up and talk a little bit about that enterprise and how we moved that? Part of it had to do, Jill can talk more about the budgeting piece and why we need to shift those into the budget rather than have it stand alone. But I can tell you for staffing, one thing that we've been doing is we've been sharing staff rather than having standalone staff assigned to one department. So to break up those costs for those staff members, your enterprise accounts need to be pretty cut and dry, what an enterprise account is and how it's being funded and where those expenditures are going. We've been kind of guesstimating the best we can on how many staff members we have, but it might be, one of those employees might be a 0.75 FTE for Ingersoll, and then the rest of that is over at rec. So, Jill, anything else on that?
It's really never was a true enterprise fund because the assets are city assets, and they were always under the city. In a true enterprise fund like the airport, all the assets are underneath that particular, and it's really supposed to be self-supporting. Ingersoll always has had a positive fund balance, And we felt that rather than leave it as an enterprise fund, we'll set up a reserve like we did with EMS and we've done with police department to do repairs for maintenance items and so forth, rather than have it all go into the general fund. But I would rather like to see it as special revenue accounts for their programs, just like we do all the other rec programs. It's all under one, it's being managed by the same people, and I feel like it fits much better that way. Ingersoll itself could be, or Norway now, I'm used to it, I'm going back a few years. But Norway is separate, and it has been separate. When we bought the building, though, the building on that one comes under the city now as well. So it's doing only operating at this time.
So that is one that we are looking at because so Norway has debt that needs to be paid off. We've been carrying that as an enterprise, and year after year, it wasn't covering its costs. So that is in a debt account that now, when you see the Norway budget, you're going to see probably about a couple $100,000 in additional revenue that we'll have, and we've done this for a couple years now. That remaining amount is going towards that debt. We're paying that debt off, even though we've now taken over the debt service. We've now financed the building, and then now that debt service is now under our debt service, not broken out any differently. But any of that extra revenue comes in Norway is going to pay debt off. We just can't write those off the books. That's still debt that we have to continue paying back over those 5 years that we had Norway under that model. So that's why I think we need to clean some of these up. It's important for the auditors to see we're taking these steps and moving them. Same thing with staff. That's why you now see all those staff members, their fringe benefits now come under the city's budget. Before, those were these standalone pocket budgets that you, like Jill's saying, if that's a standalone entity like Auburn Lewiston Airport, that's where all that will sit. With it not being that way, it's really muddy. It's hard for the auditors to, and especially right now with new auditors coming in almost every time, Jill needs to educate each one of them on what is this program and how do we have it set up. It can be a lot cleaner by not doing that.
So my understanding of rec finances is that for the most part, every different program has its own account, right? So like there's a basketball account and there's a football account and there's a softball account. So I can't wrap my head around how Ingersoll makes any money then, because wouldn't it just be the programs that are served by Ingersoll?
So we rent out the facility. So that's the
Okay.
rent that's coming in from a program that we're not running.
Got it. Okay.
So-
Okay, so then if Auburn ran, I know they have a big soccer program. If Auburn ran a soccer program inside of Ingersoll, then that would be its own account. But if I rented it for
That's correct.
100 days,
Yeah.
that would,
That would come in under a revenue account for Ingersoll.
okay.
Yep. Okay. Good question, because that is shifting, and that's why you're seeing those when you hadn't seen them before. One thing that Jill spent a lot of time with Rec this year is just taking a look at those revenue accounts. We've cleaned them up, we've condensed a lot of them, and so I think that we're making good headway on that rather than having 20 some odd revenue account. I don't know how many.
They'll have quite a few, but we're
Yeah.
working on them.
Maybe 20 is our target number now. I don't know, but we're still working towards it.
Yeah. But what they do is all of those programs, they have fees, and those fees go into a fund. But even currently, some of the programs, say for example, football, they have to buy helmets every so often, or they buy pads. It doesn't make that kind of money. So those things go into the rec budget, actually, as the city provides those. So it's just mostly pay to play, basically. We do the big stuff. And so I think that Ingersoll, it will do it the same way. I think it makes more sense.
Yeah, and just to circle back, Jill mentioned about police department too. Just so you know, for the police department, it's the revenue that comes out from when if you see an officer doing, kind of sitting at a construction site on the side of the road, That means that construction company hired the PD to be out there. They're not being paid overtime. That's a special rate that they're out there for. The city's not paying for that cost. They also pay to rent that vehicle that's out there. Plus, there's an admin fee on top of that for them to be there. So we get a little bit out of the admin fee, plus we get the vehicle rental that then goes into that account that Jill's talking about. So that account, rather than going right into the general fund, goes in to help offset in the future. Once we build that account up, we'll go in to help offset the purchase of vehicles. So, because that's something we don't budget. You're not going to see that because we don't know really how many people are going to rent, what's going on for construction sites, all those things. So there's no revenue line item for that. It's just revenue that comes in, but that's why it's going to that special account. The majority of the revenue that comes in does go to the officer pay, and so that's just paid right out. Every officer, regardless how long you've been here, what rank you're at, unless it's a site that requires a supervisor, gets the same rate of pay. So that way the person hiring doesn't need to know who signed up and what that rate of pay is. The city just bills them one rate.
Right, and it pays for and the fee pays for their fringe.
Yeah, so that-
associated to those
I think it's like a
hours as
7%
well.
fee on top of that. So that covers all of our admin, plus some, because we have processing and handling that we have to do on that too. So we truly capture all our costs. Okay, any more questions on revenue? Jill, you might not want to go far. So, any more questions on revenue? So, all right, we'll go into expenditures. So really what I'm giving you here are the highlights. Again, you're going to have all the details. You'll have all the line item details that you've had in the past at the next meeting, but this is just to give you highlights of where we're at. So the mayor council, you're going to see a 62.6% increase. The reason why that's so high is because few things. One, the city council and the mayor salaries had an increase that we weren't budgeting before. This is the first budget that those increases will come. But also, you now have planning board and you have the regulatory board that now also receives compensation. We don't have line items for those different boards. Some of those boards don't necessarily sit anywhere. You could say you could put the planning department under the planning board under the planning department, but it just makes sense to have all those salary line items in one budget. So that's why they're sitting there under mayor and council. And then the AvCog dues, where we had it before was, one thing we're trying to do is be better at actually what are dues, where is it sitting, and how is it aligned? As a city, we are part of AvCog. There's a dues that's associated with that. It really should be in this line item rather than into a department line item. City clerk, 8.4% increase. So there's salary increases here, but really the big increases as it pertains to elections. So trying to bring on wardens and ward clerks is really difficult. It's a challenge. We're still working on that. However, a couple things that happen with that is, one, what we were compensating for them increased based on the state. So this is increasing those amounts as well. So that's why you see that number there. Finance department, Jill looks like a rock star here. Hers decreased 2.4%. But part of that is we transferred.
You stole one of my people.
We transferred one of our staff members out and put them in. That's Derek Belanger, who's our purchasing agent. Derek's now under the capital investment purchasing department. So that's why that shift happened. When you have a staff of only a handful of people, you get higher percentage decreases. You'll see that as we are aligning more departments in here. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So Phil, if you're taking out one FTE, how are you only going down 2.4%?
Increases in another area.
Increases in other areas, like we have an increase that's coming in through salaries, but also there's a, like what we had to do recently with the hours for the tax office. What we need better coverage for is during some of our peak times, and this gives a part-time person to be able to, they're able to bring somebody on part-time to be able to cover that. So that's where some of that shift is.
I think something that would be helpful here is to show that math then. So if you're decreasing by an entire employee to bring those costs back up, like you're increasing a couple.
You're not going to see it in this is just a preliminary worksheet. You're going to see that when you get your detail sheet.
Yep.
You'll
Okay.
see each line item and what that line item is driving. So, yeah. And you'll also, you'll see the breakdown of any revenue changes too for each one of those departments. So communications, again, Liz with a 53% decrease. But if you remember, when we talked about IT, we broke IT out of that and created its own department. So that means that one line item is decreasing by 53. You're going to see that shift within other departments. And some of that is where there were actual positions that could be transferred. Jill carried that over, so you could see those positions carry over. But some of those that necessarily, it didn't fit that way. So you might, that's why some of those percentage swings will shift. But when you see the dollar amount, you'll see that sometimes we're talking about a very small dollar amount in that. Nothing else other communications that was really driving that other than that transfer of IT. Business and community development, you're going to see a 31.1% increase in that line item. That is driven by HUD and the lead grant. So we have a lead grant that is now funding additional positions. Those additional positions are in that expense line item, but you're going to see a revenue offset. So really the net difference on that budget, when you were to, so when you look at the detail sheet in the future, and you were to take the revenue increase plus the expense, you're looking at about a $15,000 increase in that line item, in that department budget, rather. Economic development, the 71.6% increase, that's really the driven, when you only have one position, and you add the downtown coordinator, which we added partway through last year, and we transferred the events that was in the rec department over to our downtown coordinator, because the majority of those events are all down in the downtown, and that downtown coordinator will be running those. If you recall, part of that was Sabrina's position that was as a rec director. We didn't backfill. We shifted that position over to the downtown coordinator. We brought Jeremy up to director and Donna up to deputy director, then backfill that position, shifted that position over here. So that's why you'll see that. So when I talk about some shifting, that's where it's going to be really hard to follow this, but that's why I wanted to give you this sheet first, talk about it. Then when you start looking at the details, you'll see more of that. Planning and permitting, another transfer. This is taking the city electrician out of planning and permitting and moving it into maintenance. So the city electrician does maintenance. This is different than Charlie DeAngelis, which is the city electrician that does all of our code. So that position stays under planning, permitting, code. However, the electrician is now under maintenance, and that's under PW. So all things maintenance are shifting to public works.
Phil, does that
Yeah.
include, is there an offset there with the school? Is it too early to tell?
So for counselors that have been here for a while, you'll recall several years ago, an additional position was added to the city electrician to cover school. Even though that was done on paper, it was the practice as we started digging into that never happened.
They
The
still
school
outsource it?
continued outsourcing that. So we no longer have that added position. So, because it used to be Charlie and two electricians that were in there. That position wasn't filled, at some point didn't get filled. So what we want to do, and I spoke with Connie all this already, the superintendent, talked about just evaluating this. That's something that she'll need to do as well with her new business manager, to take a look, as well as what we're bringing in through our capital and facilities review of the school department, to see how much is actually being outsourced, what could be done, and because you'll see under projects considered but not included, you're going to see where we're talking about that other electrician. But rather than putting it in the budget, I really wanted us to do a full workload analysis on that now that we have that separated, to really determine what is the driving cost. Is there a capacity for an additional FTE? And if it is, what does that look like? And then what is the school paying, and what could we potentially offset within the schools?
And just to be clear, the school management that didn't follow through on council directive 3 years ago, I think, is when we proposed this, is no longer here. So I don't want any, not the current finance and the current school superintendent did not implement that.
Yeah, and I certainly don't want to put the blame on the school, and you're right, I think everybody's kind of newer to these positions. But part of that could have very well have been, there was no capacity within the city to be able to do that, because like anything else, sometimes when you bring another FTE in, well, they're just picking up that extra work, and they're getting more of that work done, and not necessarily dividing that work up. So that's the piece we don't know, because it was never implemented. But that's something we will do now that we have Public Works over all those work orders that are being done. We'll be able to track what that work is. We're actually tracking work orders within the school department now, and so that we know exactly what the work order is, how much time was spent on that work order, who was it allocated to. So that's what we're bringing within the Public Works Department, so that we can have that. Because that's something we do on the city side for a long time. The school just didn't have that capacity. Nothing against the school, they just didn't have that capacity to be able to do that. We're able to do that, so we're tracking that within our work order system. So we'll be able to actually pull up what were those work orders for electrician work, what was the need, and what did we pay out to someone else. So that's coming, but that's why it's a future project not included, because I don't want to put something in that we don't know all the details on yet. So we'll do a full workload analysis. We'll bring that back before you. IT, the increase here, a couple things driving that. One is that asset management position that was budgeted through ARPA is now shifting into the budget, as well as software fees for some new software systems that we also brought in. So those that we could build into those programs for future years, we did. Others we weren't able to, and they're coming into this budget. Recreation has a 0.5% increase. Part of this is that shift that Jill was talking about for Ingersoll, but this is also a position in the events that I already talked about that was shifted out over to economic development. That's that offset that you're seeing here. That's why it's only showing a 0.5% increase. And then one thing that we did, rather than put this as a future program, I worked with Jeremy and Donna and Brian. We talked about, we really want to take the rec program, and I believe I had shared this with the council as well. We still have a lot of students, a lot of young people in Auburn that just don't have access to rec programming. And there's still barriers there for them. Even though we have scholarships, we have some sliding fees, we still have some students that just aren't able to go. What's in this budget is for any youth in Auburn that's kindergarten through sixth grade will be able to participate in 3 sporting programs. So basically 3 seasons. They will have access at no cost for a rec program. Any student in Auburn. So there'll be no barrier other than what we need to work on for transportation. We're working on that now. So we want to make sure that we can do something for transportation, because that is one of those barriers for young people to be able to participate in youth programming. We have a lot of young people in our city that just have never had that opportunity that available to them because of these different barriers. And it could be just, sometimes some people say, well, it's only a $35 fee. Well, that $35 could be everything that, that could be it. You could have said it's a $10 fee, and that's a barrier. They just wouldn't be able to do it. So we're working money in there. What we're also working on is to ensure that we have other funding through some grant programming to be able to cover if, we did this when we ran a soccer program years ago at the Pal Center. We had 100 kids show up, and maybe 3 of them had soccer cleats. So we had to stop that first day, send everybody home, go reach out to a local vendor and say, look, we got this program. We've got 100 kids that showed up. None of them had shin guards or cleats. Can you help us out? They did it. By that next week when they came back, we had everything for them. So we'll work on that. I think this is an opportunity for us to partner with some of our businesses that are certainly tied into wanting to have rec programming successful. To be able to say, look, we're covering their costs. You can just help us with any need that they might have regarding sneakers or whatever that might be. So Jeremy and Donna are the right people to make this work with the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. That group is committed to make these programs work, and they're committed working with Jeremy and Donna to get that done. So the fact that I don't know of any rec program in the state of Maine that's offering 3 sport programs for 3 seasons within a year at no cost for any one case of 6. So, there.
Just to summarize that just for a second, what you basically just described is, it is, we've been talking kind of around the edges of a culture of sport, sports tourism for years. Counselors that have been here for a while. You basically, in this budget, every single kid in Auburn can play 3 sports a year.
That's correct.
That bottom line, free, no cost, public-private partnership. First city in the state of Maine that has universal athletic opportunities for their kids. Yeah. That,
This is my line item that I'm most excited about.
That's
You know,
huge.
this is one where I think this is coming from feedback that we're hearing from you about what we need to do within our community. And in the outreach, when we were at the retreat, we started talking about this. This is how we're going to get there for that. And so really happy for the staff, that Jeremy and Donna that worked on this with the team to work these numbers, working with Jill, and to be able to present this. So it was a big lift for them to say, look, I need this in this budget. We need to make it work. So they did that. Yeah, Councilor.
Go ahead.
You sure? So first off, that's amazing. Thank you for proposing that. The second thing I want to ask is, I know that staffing's been an issue lately. Do we think that taking on these kids so quickly, we're going to have a staffing issue with volunteers or what have you?
Yeah, great question. I think they're working through it. One thing they've got is a great team of volunteers. And so I think we're going to need to enhance that, because we might have been only running, say, 6 teams, and now we might be up to 14 teams. So it's going to require a lot. I think that's where we need to partner, and they've already been talking about partnering with the school department for some of our young people that are involved in sports to be able to come in and be those junior mentors in that coaching and have them involved, because then you would only need one plus one of the junior coaches, and you'll be able to offset some of that. So they're already talking about what those, how can they meet that demand once they push it out.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I think we just created a lot of busy parents.
Yeah, right. Transportation's that next thing. Just so you know, I didn't close the loop on that, but we recognize transportation's an issue. We see it with our PAL program. We see it with our before and after school programs. We need to work on that. I can tell you that in the short amount of time that Dennis Dote, our public works director, and Scott have been looking at within the school department for the bus system there. They've hired 5 new bus drivers. All bus routes are now back up and operational. They're still down, Brian, 8 full-time plus a handful of part-time drivers. But those 5 at least get all routes back up and operational. There might be one that's doing two routes, but they are, so some bus stops are still a little delayed. I know when I went down Hampshire Street today, I was noticing it was like 8:20 and there were still some kids at that bus stop. That means that's probably one of those second loops and they're still waiting for that loop to get picked up. But huge improvement. School department's doing a great job working with Dennis and his team and working through that. As we start talking about transportation, we start talking about transit, start talking about school, we need to look at this collectively and say, okay, how can we bring a solution to the table for this? And how can we get some of our kiddos that are getting done school, that would have been going into an after-school program, that could get to the rec program? So basically, they're at rec. So they can come to rec, be part of an after-school program, but then go right into their sport program as well. So that way there, that campus is pretty busy all the time. We've got kids coming there, they're part of that, but then they can go right into their programming. Okay, Counselor, you had a question?
Counselor Hawes got my question.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would just add to that then that, if there's a local business that's helping us out with some equipment, that we better make sure that we take care of them and publicize, get their name out there. I'm sure Jeremy and Mark have got that covered. But
Yeah, you're going to see a lot more sponsorship signs go up and make sure that we are showcasing them as one of our supporters. And so, yeah, more to come on that, but I think it's very exciting to see this move forward. So, Public Library came in at a 3% increase, and that's just really an increase for her salary and operations. Again, that's our contribution to the library. We pick up probably close to 90% of the library's operating expenses. The rest is coming through private support. So the city has the majority of that that operating costs. Debt service, I already mentioned, is an 8.1% increase. That is as a result of the bonding to cover the FY22 bond that was done. So that's $627,085.
Well, I'm sorry, question, Mr. Does this also include some of the first or second year increase in bonding associated with Norway Savings Bank? What year was that? Was that in 20 or 21 budget?
19?
Oh, it was
FY19?
18 or 19.
No, it was
I
later.
think it's FY19.
Yeah, 19.
I think we did it in 2018, but it probably hit the FY19
Okay.
debt service. We can confirm that. But I think that's it. Capital investment and purchasing. Again, this is the new department. However, we were moving everything around, shifting into this. So these were positions that were already in other departments. But on top of that, you see a 3.6% increase. This is driven by utilities, cost of fuel, cost of, if your home CMP bill is increased, multiply that by several hundred, because that's what we're seeing within our buildings as well. So we're certainly seeing an increase there, even with our savings that we're doing through hydro, some of those other. We're seeing those savings at Norway. Norway's been seeing a decent amount of savings. We'll get you a report on that soon. But we are starting to see some of that. But it's still increasing our utilities, cost of fuel, facility, anything that we do in the facility now. If you have somebody coming and working on HVAC, you might as well increase that by about 30%. So that's what we're seeing in these budgets, as well as just regular cost of goods. Workers' compensation, it's 8.7% increase. FY22 had no increase. And so we kept it the same, but at the same amount of increase. So it didn't compound in this year.
This is mostly the excess insurance. We have to buy, we're self-insured for workers' comp. We have to buy excess insurance or over a certain amount. And they've raised the amount that we have to have, for one thing, went from 500,000 to 750,000 coverage. And the price of it almost doubled from what it was. And we go out to bid. We're in the process of going out to bid again.
Umbrella liability above and beyond. what we-
Yes.
Yes, yep. Fringe benefits, we brought forward the FY22 health insurance increase. If you recall, last year, we had no increase within our health insurance. So we brought that forward within this year, but it's still, we're anticipating that increase to happen this year, even though it didn't happen last year. We won't have those numbers yet, coming for October, correct, Joe?
Well, the change is for July, or January 1st.
Okay, yeah. Oh, January, I'm sorry, that's
Right.
right, so 6 months. So we're anticipating a 6-month increase on that. Main PERS, we're seeing increases there. Some of those are just the cost of main PERS, they're increasing percentages, or contributions are increasing, or the amount of people contributing to signing up for main PERS when we bring them in. Sometimes some employees might go, main PERS is the main state retirement system. Some might opt not to do main state retirement and do ICMA. Our contribution is less for ICMA than it is for main PERS. We're seeing more people sign up for main PERS when they come in, so we're seeing that shift. So ICMA might be decreasing or remaining level, but the others are increasing. HRA and salary reserve, we have 2 collective bargaining units in this upcoming fiscal year. So we don't put those, what we're anticipating, into the budget. They're just in salary reserve. So as we negotiate, there's funding there to be able to, we work within that when we negotiate, but those funds are available in the salary reserve line item. Fire and EMS is seeing a 4.5% increase for salary adjustments. That's including overtime for vacation and sick replacement. That's the fire chief's here, that's the driving force that he sees, is that overtime and vacation replacement is what's driving that budget. The chief also put together a potential project for you to consider. That's in that other column on that second page. You're seeing there where we did this a few years ago, where we brought extra staff on to help offset the overtime costs. Chief is proposing that you could do that again. It would decrease the overtime costs, but with fringe, there's a net there of $68,000 to do that, to bring 4 additional people on, reduce your overtime costs, but it would still cost $68,000 for those 4 additional firefighters. That's what your cost would be, because we're reducing our overtime costs and all those line items. Because our minimum staffing is based off of our apparatus. So if we have an apparatus in service, then we have to minimally staff that. So that's what's driving that. Plus, we have a higher demand for our EMS. There's times when the chief is putting on a 3rd EMS rescue truck just to meet those demands. So, but that'll be under future. Again, we can, if you're like, look, I want to know more about this as we start talking about budget, then you're going to want to bring that up, and we can have the chief talk more about that. Police, 11.7% increase. Part of this was that the police union, both unions, the command and the patrol union, both negotiated a 1-year and then immediately did a 3-year contract. So what you're seeing in here is you're seeing 2 years worth of increases in their salary that never got reflected into the budget because they hadn't negotiated the contract yet. So you're seeing those 2 years for the first time in this FY22 budget, even though it's reflecting back to increases that were done in FY19. So that's kind of what you're seeing. I'm sorry, FY20. So that's what you're seeing in there. So that certainly is driving that increase. That's probably the majority of their increases, is that those salaries did not reflect that in the last 2 years. The chief is also proposing a reorg within his budget, and you'll see that also on that second page. This restructure right now, the way that the structure within the department is set up is that their patrol division has 2 lieutenants that are assigned over patrol, but yet they have 4 squads. So you have a day and you have an evening lieutenant. That means at nighttime there's quite a few hours where there's no lieutenant. It's just the sergeants are doing that coverage. What he's proposing is years ago, we had a lieutenant and a sergeant over each squad. He's proposing that, being able to shift that additional personnel into a PACE team. Part of that PACE team would be creating a proactive community enforcement unit that would handle specifically Auburn cases. Currently, we contract with Maine Drug Enforcement Agency. There are 2 officers that are assigned to Maine Drug Enforcement Agency, and the state reimburses us for those 2 positions. So we hire up 2, send them off to MDEA. They work cases in the region, not necessarily cases in Auburn. They'll be in Auburn if the case drives them there, but for the most part, they're working the region. And then we also have an additional officer that's assigned to a federal task force. That is not reimbursed. That's within the budget. We pay for that officer to be in that federal task force. What the chief wants us to consider is kind of restructuring, move those positions that did not have reimbursement into that team, and then they would be strictly focused on community enforcement within the city of Auburn, working their own cases, working their own, whether that's drug cases, working whether or not there's a neighborhood that has issues and we have to be there. How do we collaborate with code enforcement, whoever else, and working those initiatives. So that would be a standalone team. If you want more information on that, Chief can come in and present, but you see the dollar value on that, changing that structure, losing that $140,000 in revenue that we receive from Maine Drug Enforcement would mean an impact. The delta on that would be $270,000 added to the budget to make that program work in that restructure. But if people are interested in that, we can make sure the chief presents that to you, or it can be considered in a future year. Public Works, 8.1% increase. This is part of salaries, mostly cost of goods regarding road salt. Right now, if anybody has any fuel, if anybody has any road salt costs right now, and you have space and you have extra money in your budget, they're basically trying to buy up as much as they can because they're anticipating that's going to continue to increase. We're in the same boat on that. So we have that cost is going to be driven, but fuel cost is the driving number for Public Works. And so everybody's paying more at the pump. We will do the same thing. And And then obviously, like I mentioned before, was that transfer of the electrical department over into public works. That's at other shifts. That's why that's increasing to 8.1%. Solid waste, we've been under a contract with solid waste that has been extending 1 year extensions for, we've done what, 5 years of extensions, Dan? 12 years total, so yeah, 9, probably was a 4-year contract, 5-year extensions. Okay. So, Casella is who we contract with. So they let us know they were not interested in any more extensions. Their costs are increasing. Not a great deal for us, but something that they had to do. And so, so I had to negotiate with them. We were able to work through our increase. We agreed to a 2-year contract because I think we really probably need to work up a bid. I would propose that the new Sustainability and Resource Board, a Natural Resource Board, who has a work group that's on recycling, take on working with staff to take a look at what that bid should include. We really need to think about recycling. Costs us money to recycle. We've agreed years with previous council to continue that, but we need to look at it again. We also need to see what else is out there. There's not much out there for us in this region. It doesn't mean that somebody might not bid to come in, or another group might bid, but that means there would be a pretty steep increase in that to make that happen. A good portion of what we do recycle, if they don't have buyers for it, Casella then has to just transfer that back over to Maine Waste to Energy. So if it's costing us, I think a good example on this is say for every $1 that we might be spending on our just regular solid waste for collection, it's really about the collection fee that we're looking at here. So it might cost us, say, for every $1 that we spend on just solid waste collection, we might be spending like $1.80 for the collection for the recycling. That means then we take 60% of that and we're kicking it back to Maine Waste to Energy, we're losing a considerable amount. So we really have to decide what we want to do. If we want to continue being a community that's recycling and making that available, we might want to take a look at, well, what are we recycling? And now is it time to change what we are picking up so that it's things that we know we have a consistent buyer on, rather than things that we know we're consistently sending back over to Maine Waste Energy when a collection truck already went down your street and collected that and could have brought it right to Maine Waste Energy and it didn't have to get sorted. It's all about that sorting costs, because they're going to sort it out and then take what they can't sell and get it back over to Maine Waste Energy. Yep. It gets sorted out to landfill or wherever else, right?
Old Town? Oh, yeah. It's Old Town. So there's a couple, and we, as a council, we did look, and the sustainability ad hoc that we had 3 years ago did a phenomenal job kind of looking at all, breaking it all down, including recycling. There's some legislation at the state right now that could negatively affect the recycling plant in Lewiston, which will have an adverse effect on our overall cost of recycling as well. How can we go about, we do a simple resolution or communication out to the SNRB committee to start looking at this immediately?
So Councilor Walker and I met earlier today about
Okay,
putting the
that's right
agenda
around,
together as your council rep. I don't think you have to do any order. You can just, right now, if you're all set with that work group having this for their first item that they'll be working towards, then you can go ahead and ask Councilor Walker to do that, and he'll bring it to the work
Hopefully
group.
it's just an update. If everybody's in agreement on that, just nodding around. Hopefully it's just an update to what the work they already did with revised.
Yeah, I think they'll have to expand that a little bit because we probably need to work in what will it look like for us to be able to go out to bid? What does that look like? So I think there'll be a bigger task on their hands. So,
I've got a little question.
yeah.
How's the composting going? Do we have many takers on it?
Yeah, I can get you we'll get you an update. I think we wanted to make sure that we had a decent amount of months of collection and still pushing it out there so we know how many people are using it. But they are tracking by weight how much they're collecting from us. And so I'll have an update for that for you soon.
Thank you.
So, yeah. Actually, that will probably go back to your new work group that will then bring it to the board, and that board will be reporting back out. So that's how we want that flow of information to happen. Information from you flows to the counselor, down to that board, and then information flows back up to the council and back to you. So we'll be working on that. That's it for expenditure impacts. Any questions about those? Again, gave you the high level. We didn't get into the weeds on, somebody's office supplies might have gone up $200 or something like that. You'll be able to see that when you get there, the full detail. What you'll also get is you're going to get a QR code on your sheet next week. That QR code, once it's up, you'll be able to go onto that QR code or just go to the website. You can do one of two things. That'll get you to that portal that we've been talking about. So any one of these line budgets that you want to drill into line items, you'll have that access into that portal so you can do that. You'll be able to get some of that information. So, all right, moving on to interlocal impacts. Auburn Lewiston Airport, their increase is $29,000. This is to align with actual costs into the budget. I think that they've had consistently, again, changing the airport manager, looking at the budget, looking at continual under budgeting certain line items. This is to get that into alignment with actual costs. LATC, this is a $206,000 increase. Don't be too alarmed. What we had done, and we talked about last year, actually the last 2 years, was that we reduced this line item because there was federal CARES money that came directly to LATC. And so we were able to reduce that. So you saw a savings over the last 2 years in LATC funds because we were funding pretty much 100% of that into this. So we did budget last year $250,000. That $250,000 being spent for the federal CARES money has run out, so we're now getting billed. That $250,000 will go for that. So the increase of $206,000 is the increase on top of that $250,000 that we budgeted last year. So that is to offset that loss of care funds. There is a transit study that the committee has agreed to put a pause on till after both city councils are done with the budget to start looking at that transit study to determine how best do we move forward with the LATC transit. LA 911 is proposing a $63,000 increase for salary, operating, and call taker position. Currently, the way that the structure works is that you have a dispatcher that's assigned to Lewiston Fire, one assigned to Auburn Fire, one assigned to Auburn PD, and one assigned to Lewiston PD with a supervisor. That's a standard shift. The call takers that come in, if you were to call 911, the first person to answer your call would be, if there's no one else on a call, the first person to answer would be the Lewiston Fire Department. They have the least amount of traffic for that dispatcher on that radio system. And then if second person was to call, it would then ring to Auburn Fire. Third person would be Auburn PD. Fourth person would be Lewiston PD. Just because of the volume of traffic on the radio and what their capacity and ability is to do. That means somebody who's dispatching is always also taking calls. That's not a good system for a 911 system. Having a setup where you have a call taker that's bringing that call in and able to push that down to your dispatcher to push it out. Because if they're on the phone with a call, what they're not hearing is what's going across on the radio. So that's where you have some issues. And so this has been a model that's been in the works for, Councilor Walker's been on this committee for many, many years. We haven't brought it forward as a recommendation to fund. And it's because we've been holding 911 at a 0% increase. I believe for the last 3, 4, 5 years, they've had a 0% increase in their budget. So this is their first increase, and it's really driven by that. What's been absorbing some of those other salary costs and operating costs is just efficiencies by changing over the phone lines within the system, moving away from the copper lines to fiber. All those things have been bringing efficiencies. So they've been covering those expenditures each year without those reductions in costs. But this year's the first year that it's coming in at us. LA Arts, $20,000 increase for the additional focus on arts in Auburn, educational outreach events. We have been funding about $10,000 for LA Arts.
So now it's going up to 30.
It'd go up to 30 is what's being proposed. Yep. And you'll have some material on the 19th with a full plan that they have outlined for you of what they're looking to do. No questions on interlocal. We'll jump to county tax impacts. $150,000 increase for county services. Council Walker and I both serve on the county budget committee. When they brought that forward, it was about a 12% increase in their budget. We were able to whittle that down to 6%. I'm concerned with this budget. I think that what's been created in the county budget is a lot of cliffs when it comes to ARPA. I believe in this budget there are close to 5 positions being funded through ARPA funds in their county budget. When those ARPA funds aren't there, that means that's going to be shifting right over under their county tax. So some concerns here. I think they definitely have some needs too. But, one thing that I bring up at every county budget meeting is that we need to take a look at the county services that are being provided to communities that are paying for dispatch, paying for EMS dispatch, or paying for additional police services. We have communities like Poland that I think do a fantastic job with saying, we have additional rural patrol in our community and town, and we're willing to pay for it. Poland also pays for additional dispatch, and they do that with Lewiston Auburn 911. They're the only town in the county that aligns with Lewiston Auburn 911. Everyone else goes under dispatch. For many years, towns were receiving dispatch at no charge. And we were looking at trying to consolidate dispatch. We were working on that. One of the commissioners at one point finally, as a compromise, came up with a fee for police if you have police service, a fee for fire, and a fee for EMS. There was no rhyme or reason with that amount. It was, we need to start somewhere, so the commissioner started off with a number. They have increased that a couple times over the years, but it's certainly not capturing all their costs. And you have other towns that have a high demand on call volume because we are responding to assist on those. So police calls in a community where they might be calling for a domestic violence incident, that means if they don't have somebody right there, Auburn's responding, because that town really needs to look at adding that extra rural patrol. They're not doing it, nothing drives them to do it, nothing forces them to do it, other than if the community says we want that added patrol. Couple moving pieces with this, and this is why I support the sheriff and what he's trying to meet the demand on, is that what he's faced with is the state police stopped providing rural patrol in a lot of communities, regular rural patrols. What they would do is they would swap out every month. So this month, Maine State Police would have the town of Durham. Next month, the county would have it. That's no longer the case. It's now all county. With that reduction in state being able to make that coverage, the sheriff has had to make some hard decisions. Problem is, those towns need to be making some of that hard decision. And if they're using added resources above and beyond a standard basic cost, those towns should be picking that up, especially if it's a town that has a much greater increase in population and businesses. You only have to look as far as Turner to see that. And so those things, that's what's driving some of that. And those are the things that we talk about in the county budget committee meetings. We say this needs to be addressed, and we do push it back to the commissioners to look at it. We haven't had a lot of traction. So there's a lot of concerns with this budget. Nothing we can do about it. You can't, for new counselors coming on, you can't go around it. You can't turn around and say, county, we'd rather only increase you $100,000. It doesn't work that way. We get our county bill and we have to pay it. The county bill is $150,000. It's based on our valuation. So when we talk about TIFs and other things within our discussions, when we do those TIFs, that certainly helps us because we're sheltering some of that valuation so that that money is going back into infrastructure costs within the city. That helps us reduce our valuation, which helps us with our county tax. Also helps us on the other side when it comes to school subsidy, what we receive from the schools. So we have that higher valuation, then we'll see less money coming in. So when we shelter that, because we know that's going directly to an infrastructure, we need to do that. We're nowhere near coming close to what the cap is on what you can TIF. We are so far below. So there's a lot of room there that we can be working on, and we'll continue to do that. The
And
last,
then the other thing
sorry.
is, I'm sorry
No,
for
that's okay.
interrupting you. Lewiston Auburn pays just about half of the money that the county needs to run their operations, right?
Lewis and Auburn, what?
We pay, of all the money that goes to the county
Yeah,
from
Lewis
the
and Auburn
towns,
pays, yeah,
we pay
50%.
more
Yeah.
than, slightly more than half of it, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
You talk about this really odd, self-fulfilling prophecy. If we don't grow in Auburn, people grow on the outside, right? And now they're traveling on our roads more, incurring heavier costs. We have lower tax base. Yeah, are they getting value? They are, but still, it doesn't offset all the inherent value that we have from not just nonprofit services, but everything else that we do as a city, the jobs, the economy. And we are subsidizing, and I say this to people in Turner, they get very upset. We're subsidizing Turner. Turner, many people in Turner have said, we don't need PD. Nah, cops don't prevent crime. They just come after the fact. Someone else will come. I mean, this is the purveying attitude in a lot of local towns. Most people in Auburn, when they talk about our roads, they talk about how come you're not doing this or that. I got to tell you, I don't know, Dan, you might remember, I'd say 30 to 40% of all the road complaints I get are from people who don't live in Auburn, that use Auburn roads. Happens all the time. And their mill rate is a third of ours. I think Turner's mill rate this year is $10.58, $11, okay? Compared to what ours is and might end up being. I say that because we have two county commissioners, John Michaels and Terry Kelly. We have a third, a partial? Maybe not. But I would probably guess that 95% of the people in Auburn do not know who their county commissioners are. They do not know how county government works, nor do they know how this is. And this puts the county, our share of county, I just checked, went up from 2.5 million last year to 3.1 this year. That's a substantial increase in the county budget. Jill, I'm right on that, right? Ish? You know, I have it right, yeah. Last 2.6 million, and now we're an increase, we're at $3.1 million. So that's our contribution.
I don't think it's that high. We'll have to take a look at it.
I'm just looking at budget 20.
It's a $150,000 increase.
Right.
Oh, 150? Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, so
Yeah.
I take that back. 2.6 to 2.8.
Yeah.
Change. Gotcha. Okay.
Just a quick question on the county budget. Just looking at the Maine municipal thing, there was a proposed increase in jail funding. So I'm
Yeah.
looking at this, could that then ratchet the 150 back a little?
So we are following that bill when it comes to jails. You won't see any change in this one. What you'll see is maybe in the future. So what should be happening is that the state should be funding around 20% of our jail. They have yet to do that. The bill that we're focusing on now.
Like education, same.
It's just like that.
Finally
It'll
got
get
to
to
it,
that
yeah.
20%.
Yeah.
But what also gets, so if you remember going back, I don't know how many years ago now, when they were building, I think right after we built our jail, actually, there was a bill that was brought forward, it might have been under Baldacci, was this whole plan regarding the jail compensation. What was never done was there was never a mechanism to go back and evaluate future costs. And so if you're funding this at a certain amount now, but yet you've gone from 140 people a day in the jail to now 210, well, there's nothing that's changed for that, built in for that cost. The bill that's before the legislators right now is that gets to be reevaluated. And so there's a board that would take the Corrections Commission would take a look and reevaluate that amount. And so that 20% would keep moving with the increased cost, which is a much better system. So,
This is, I think, the third year, too, that the county's been 6% or more.
that's correct.
Well, and the other blessing we have, usually Auburn will vote against them, and we have to pray that the commissioners will listen to us, because they can override us. We can suggest all we want. The commissioners have the final vote. we really don't carry any weight at all.
Yeah, we have to try to get, 11 votes to try to have the commissioners reconsider. And
That's
all
right.
they have to do is reconsider.
right. That's
But
all.
majority of the things did go back to them as a reconsider. And one thing that they have consistently done is, if you get those 11 votes, they have gone ahead and made those changes. So they have been consistent in that. The thing that I'd have to look at, Counselor, I said you're right, but there was a year, and I don't know if it was last year or the year before, that the county budget didn't increase very much at all.
It was last year. It was down 16,000.
Yeah, so there was a year there where they had a huge savings.
Yeah, well, we forced them to go into their savings account.
That's exactly what
why.
they did. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Because of the pandemic, we didn't know where that was gonna come in at, so we did change it. If there's no other questions, Mayor, we do have time to go into at least one executive session if you'd like.
No, we have one other topic. You want to do the topic and then executive sessions at the end?
I forgot we have one
Do we have
more
anybody
topic.
here for the executive sessions, Phil, or are they internal? Any guests?
I do not, so we did have a guest. City of Lewiston was supposed to be here, but I don't see her. So.
Okay, then I'll push those executive sessions either. at the
Okay,
beginning
so
of the
Dan can
7th.
come up and give you a quick update
or
on where we are with
after.
Lake Grove. I apologize, I forgot we had that on the agenda. You can sit anywhere, Dan. Here, sit next to me, Dan. Yeah.
Dan, I'm just gonna,
Yes.
if we get in about 10 minutes, I'll stop you.
I won't be
so we
that
can-
long.
Okay. But we can reconvene you, okay, right back. So, go.
So back 6 months ago, the council appropriated $150,000 towards Lake Grove through the ARPA funds. During that time, I have been scratching my head with what to do, what to spend that money on. I've received a proposal from a consultant to do an action plan, which would be for remediation and water quality investigation, essentially to develop a plan on what we can do to rehab the beach area, the whole Lake Grove water system. That proposal is about $120,000. At the same time, Phil has spoken with me about what can we do. I know the committee had met and said, throw some bubblers out there. I spoke to Kenneth Wagner, who's a PhD water quality specialist, I guess you'll call him. He is of the opinion that you would need physical and chemical conditions assessment to determine what you would need to do in that. I spoke to vendors, more vendors than I care to remember, about what to do in terms of aerators, how many, what size. People will sell you 1 million aerators, but no one's going to guarantee any change in the water quality. Everyone says that's probably part of this. The common theme is that's probably part of the solution, but no one will say it's the solution, and no one will back any change to the water quality. They'll sell me them all day long. So I'm here today to determine if the council wants me to move forward with the $120,000 action plan or reallocate the ARPA. I'm at a loss of how I should proceed.
So, Mayor, what we did want to do, council, was to expend those dollars and not have an outcome that you were looking for. And so that's why we put the brakes on that. We chose not to. Did ask Dan to at least do the research to determine what, if we were to bring in, like he had said, that environmentalist PhD with what we could do for that water quality to make that change, what that cost for that plan would be is that $120,000. So it's up to you. That means you'd pay the 120, but then you would also have to then pay what it would take to execute that action plan.
Which would probably mean doing what we did back in the 70s and having bulldozers come in and post a 3 to 4 year EPA approval process and dredging the thing.
It's not that long. We did the pond at the Hasty Pettingill Park.
Yeah.
We dredged that actually 3, 4, it seems like yesterday. And that permit process is six to 8 months.
Thoughts?
Yeah,
Probably shorter because we'll have the information if we did the action.
I'd like to, I guess, address a little bit of what's been going on there. You've been around here a long time, and you've seen over the years what has happened. We've been working at this now for more than 5 years. We've been putting off things that we wanted done here for the last 3 years. We've put money in the budget, and we've let it sit there, and we've had, I don't know how many meetings between all of us. We probably had 100 different meetings. But the board that I sat on looked at least trying the aeration of using it out there in the lake. You say that they say there's no guarantees, but you can look this stuff up on any YouTube or any place you want, watch what they've done, and everyone says it does something. Right? It may not do all of this, and it may not do all of that. But last year, we tested that lake, I don't know how many times, only failed once. I know no one was swimming in it. But if the aerating machine or aeration from the air makes 1% different in that water, it may have tested 100%.
Then
of
I
the
would
time
love the
without
council
any-
to direct me what to purchase or which vendor to use, because no one will.
No one will guarantee the work or give you an accurate estimate on how many and how much.
Correct.
Which,
So we can take the $150,000 and say, we will buy everything that will
$150,000.
cost. And we can go in for labor to install it, everything. We can do that, but I want to make sure the council knows that I'm not sure where we're going to be at the end of it. Like Council Walker said, it might be the improvement that gets you above.
Last year we had, if everyone remembers, it was an
Just 1 week.
extremely rainy year.
yep,
And that's exactly what this needs, because it needs water turnover.
right.
And that's
So,
why
Let me, Dana?
Yeah, rather than us try and make a decision in 5 minutes, we have a couple members of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board here with us tonight. I wonder if that group would be willing to take this on as a task and to come back with a recommendation for what to do with this money.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, we've already been through all
We've been
that.
through that, yeah. This is a
Right.
recommendation.
Okay.
So,
The recommend-
I'm sorry?
The recommendation
Was to go with aeration and purchase equipment necessary or deemed. I think there might be a little way to kind of get a bit more, I think Counselor Walker's absolutely right. We've been sitting on this now for quite a bit of time. We all used to swim in that lake a lot. I guess things change. And it does seem like we have a whole city filled with lake experts in Auburn, according to some signs I've seen in the neighborhood. So maybe we can draft them to help make it cleaner. But let's look at a couple things. Why don't we look at what we can do specifically and the rules and operating costs around running, swimming, at what levels periodic testing is needed. For example, the analogy is apt. It's a pool. Okay, you need X amount of dollars to run a pool with safety, lifeguards, and so forth. In a testing protocol, that pool's tested every 2 hours. Okay, to make sure the balance is right. If the balance isn't right, you don't go swimming in the pool. For whatever it is. Usually in a pool, it's fecal contamination, E. coli, which is something we've been testing for. If we could get that standard operating procedure, best practices, and then look at what it would cost to staff, run partnerships with someone going into that, I'd like to look at that maybe by next meeting, or the next meeting after that, depending upon your timing, of course. And it very well could be you're going to be able to swim in this in July. And because that's historically when we're going to have the best water quality. So something versus nothing, but start moving into it. And maybe it's kayaking, canoeing, and no full body immersion in the water. Not sure. But it's hard to spend $150,000 to study something that won't give us a concrete answer. I mean, trust me, I want to swim in that thing badly. I might.
Mayor, I want to make sure we're clear and we're all using the same terminology. You're saying study it and then not be able to use it. So are you saying purchase the aerator?
No, neither. I'm saying, what is the standard operating procedure for running a municipal body of water outdoors? What is the criterion? Okay, how much does it cost for a Parks and Rec lifeguard staff or an outsourced management to test the water periodically? How to test for it, what to test for, and then give the go, no-go sign on use on a daily or weekly. There is an SOP in water health and water safety that we can follow. If Councilor Walker is correct, and what she was, I read this study too, there's 1 week, because we're testing weekly, whereas bad E. coli. It was very off the charts. I think TD, total dissolved solids, were high as well. But I think what we haven't done is say and present it to the council, this is what you need to run an outdoor swimming pool in a body of water, non-pool. Does that make sense? And I used to be a pool spa operator back in the day, don't laugh. But there is an SOP out there. It's free. You can get it, look at it, and let's see where we're going from there.
So I think we can provide you that. We
Yeah.
can tell you what our full cost is to be able to do that, because we've been testing it. What we are still not gonna get to is, we can get you that amount, we can tell you what that cost will be. And then what I think I might be hearing is, once we get you that amount, then go ahead and open it up for swimming,
Pilot.
keep testing, shut it down when it's not.
Absolutely.
So I think we did, let me dig into that a little bit more.
Okay.
I want to say we did that, and we shut it down after a few weeks, back when we were operating out of there. So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's standardized municipal SOP.
The,
And all the
My
stuff
guess is
off
that would be part of the recommendation.
part of the aerating and dredging.
No,
right?
no. You can't dredge, the state won't let you go in there and dredge.
Oh, so
Just for
dredging's not even
dredging.
an option.
No, they would let you if you have the science behind it.
You can't do it without the action plan. The state would require the action plan to be able to dredge that.
I'm a fan of go forward and green, green light, red light, as long as we're in nationally, dictated
That's fine
parameters.
with me.
And then, hey, we just have to know, if we have a 3-week dry spell, and we don't have turnover, and the water levels goes down, we're closed.
And it might not even be that, it might just be use.
Might be,
Right, it's gonna
right,
stir
the
everyone
park,
up.
That use might be what shuts it down too.
it very well could be.
So that means as long as we're all going in knowing that we might have a year where it's a complete bust and nobody's gonna be able
But then as
We
a
s-
precaution, we can also run showers too, so when people leave.
It's
their-
not the showers, it's the
No.
adjustment.
Well, I understand what's in the water, but as an added precaution, even if it's minor or none, they still can wash off before they go home.
It doesn't do anything. Yeah, if you have to wash off after you leave a lake, you shouldn't go in the lake to begin with. That's the concept. You wash off after a pool to get the chlorine off so it doesn't get into
Right.
clothes. But if you're swimming in something that is a good idea, if you take a shower afterwards, it probably
Right.
won't work.
I mean, like Middle Rag Pond, they have places to shower off, stick
Yeah,
the
but
sand
it's-
off and go.
Yeah, it's not because of E. coli though. That's
I still want to go back to the meetings that we've had. Almost every meeting that we've had, we talked about doing the aeration. One place out there, probably 200 feet up away from the dam, in that water, to keep that water moving, especially when we're talking the middle of the summer, when it's July, and that's almost stagnant water.
So we can do that right away. We'll put in the order, we can go ahead and get it in. I want to make sure the council is aware that there's no vendor that's saying it's going to work and you're going to be able to use the water. That's the piece that we want to, that's the point I want to make sure is brought back home tonight here at this meeting is,
I mean-
we can make the purchase. You've allocated the money. We could have gone out and just spent it, put it in, and done what we could with that 150,000. But what we're telling you is that there's no vendor that's going to say, you're going to have a successful water usage after this. They just won't do it. And so we can do it. I can do exactly what Council Walker, team's ready to go. They'll put it in. We'll get the vendor. They'll install it. It's the same, in some ways, other than spending the 150,000.
120.
It's the same, I keep rounding it up.
I know you do.
It's that same gamble, but now you're spending the 120,000.
I'd like to just add a little something more to the meetings we've gone to. When we looked at the aeration, which would blow water into the air, hopefully you'll buy one that has the lights on it. We were looking at, as the future goes on, kayaks could be possible out there, even if we can't swim.
Yeah.
Paddle boats would be possible out there. And by putting this out into the water, it gives you something to say, you don't go any further than that point, because from here to here is swimming, this point is for paddling.
So I think we could buoy that, because what we're found from the vendors is that the water fountain is decorative only. That's not doing the work, it's the bubblers that are underneath the water that does the work.
Correct.
The other piece is just decorative. So, but we could buoy it off, we could say this is the area that people could put a kayak in or do whatever else. Right now, the people use it for that, because there are people that are already going in and using it. Most of them live on the other side, and so they'll go on in with their boat. But, so,
There,
yeah, I can make this for the next meeting if you like. We're okay with timing. If you want to have some more time to discuss this, we can put it on the agenda for the next meeting. And I can put it in under a action item to give you the report, and then you can either determine to reallocate that or put it back into the budget.
I think it's safe. I mean, right now, there's some thinking that needs to go on here. Let's put it into our next packet. And, because I just want to make, what's the lead time on ordering the bubblers?
Depends, well,
Rough.
I have no idea, how's that? No one, you can get.
Yeah, it's
I
everything.
mean,
vendors won't walk in on
we
it.
did an original sizing, it was 115 bubblers for a pond that size. Based on the same size aerator that's used in a septic tank.
And that was for 150,000? Was that?
Are you using,
No, we didn't even go for a price.
are you using a float one? Is that what you're looking at?
Yes, it has an outside ring, actually the bubblers sit down below.
Yeah.
So I don't even know how. It's,
Yeah, and you know what, here's the other thing too, we don't know if we'll make it worse. You know, when you're
That's a
turning
great
up,
point.
when you're turning up that sediment on the bottom, you're turning up everything that's in the sediment.
That
But-
isn't gonna turn up much settlement on the bottom because it's a float one. It's up in the water, not near the bottom. It's not gonna.
So it's just taking the top thermocline layer up?
And
Okay.
it's making oxygen and whatever. The
So,
other-
look, let's bring it up on the agenda. I think, let's think about it. Let's get some firm numbers in front of us so we can see it in the packet if we could. Let's look at those options, and I think we should go from there.
What,
And I mean, I don't think a 2-week delay will hurt it.
one of the things, though, going back to the aeration that's gonna be done, if we use these units, there are a lot of things that they tell you, if you look this stuff up, that what good it does do. It takes care of the cloudiness of the water. It also takes and moves the oxygen around, which helps with the fish, especially when you're talking 95 to 100-degree weather. There are 50 things that one of these machines do in the water that betters the water quality. So for people to tell you, and I know what they're saying, they don't guarantee you the swimmer won't get swimmer's itch. But this does many, many things. I was on the whole thing today, reading all the things that one of them things does for the water. So for someone to tell you it does nothing, or it does this amount, they're full of shit. Call somebody else and talk
So
to
on
somebody.
that note, though, we're going to put this on the agenda at 7:03. I think we all have the same goal. It's how do we accomplish the goal. So thank you very much for the workshop. We'll all go back to the council chambers. Meeting. Good evening. I'd like to call to order this city council meeting of April 4th, 2022. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry for the delay, folks. Our workshop just ran a little bit over, so we'll try to make it up. First on the agenda tonight is 2 consent items. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Second.
A motion, Councilor Staples. I got a second from Councilor Walker. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 7-0. Next are the minutes of the March 21st, 2022 regular city council meeting. Are there any corrections? None being, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Motion.
Motion from Councilor Hawes, second from
Leroy.
Councilor Walker. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Passes 7-0. Next, on to communications, presentations, and recognition. Well, we have a very exciting night tonight, actually, and I'd like to ask the Chief of Police to escort Patrol Officers Isaac Labonte and Timothy Robinson up to the DS for the administration of the oath of office for the Auburn Police Department. Good evening. Please repeat after me. Just for Patrolman Labonte and Robinson. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state, so long as I shall remain a citizen thereof, and I will faithfully discharge to the best of my abilities the duties incumbent upon me as patrol officer for the City of Auburn, according to said constitutions, the laws of the state, and ordinances of the city. On my honor, I won't betray my badge, my integrity, my character or public trust. I'll have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions. I'll uphold the Constitution, community, and agency I serve. Please join me in congratulating Patrolman Labonte and Robinson, new members of the Auburn Police Department. Next, I'd like to present the oath of office for Matthew Johnson. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state, so long as I shall remain a citizen thereof, that I will faithfully discharge to the best of my abilities the duties incumbent on me as police detective for the City of Auburn, Maine, according to said constitutions, the laws of the state, and ordinances of this city. On my honor, I won't betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or public trust. I'll have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions. I'll uphold the Constitution, community, and agency I serve. Please join me in congratulating our latest and newest police detective for the City of Auburn, Maine, Matthew Johnson. Detective Johnson's badge is his father, Neil. Next would be Nicholas Gagnon on his promotion. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state, so long as I shall remain a citizen thereof, and that I will faithfully discharge, to the best of my abilities, the duties incumbent upon me as Police Sergeant for the City of Auburn, Maine, according to said constitutions, the laws of the state, and ordinances of this city. On my honor, I won't betray my badge, my integrity, my character, or public trust. I'll have the courage to hold myself and others accountable for our actions. I'll uphold the Constitution, community, and agency I serve. Please join me in congratulating the newest Sergeant of the Auburn, Maine Police Department, Nicholas Gagan. Sergeant Gagan's badge is his wife, Nicole. Chief, do you want to say something? Would you like to say anything at this point? No? Folks, this is probably one of the greatest privileges of being mayor, and I know the city council joins me in these sentiments. Whenever we get to swear in someone to really protect our city, make our city better, work with our residents, and stand at attention for as long as they possibly can without fainting. Don't lock your knees. I've had the privilege of working with a few of you already. It's a pleasure. Thank you for being dedicated to our city. We'll be dedicated to you. At this time, I'd like to have the families come up if you'd like some pictures. We'll get out of your way so they're really good pictures. Let's put your bikes down.
Get the baby in there. Chief?
Next on the agenda, I'd like to have, and by the way, Chief, I do believe you'll have extra cake. You forgot the council last 4 times we've done this, I think. So, friendly reminder, it's budget season. Oh, the wife will love that one. Next up is our communication plan. I'd like to ask Liz Allen to come up to the podium and give us a briefing on that. And I believe we have a copy of this too on our dais in front of you.
This is the right one. Good evening. So you saw me a very short while ago, just a couple weeks ago, but I'm back. So at the conclusion of my recent department overview presentation, I made the promise to come back and see you very soon with a communications plan for the city. So I'm here this evening to deliver on that promise. As you know, one of the 11 final strategic recommendations from our 2019 strategic planning process was this one, to establish a citywide communications plan. So you each have before you this evening that very plan. I hope you take some time in the days and weeks to come to review it and know that a lot of care and effort went into its creation and many years of hard work, not just this past year, but in all the years since the strategic plan was written. So I'm not going to take you through it page by page, and I don't necessarily have to do a department overview again since you just heard that, but I would like to share a few highlights of the plan. So first I want to point out the graphic on the front of it, which I absolutely love. Our brand new communications assistant created this graphic recently for us, and I love it mostly because, kind of like a mosaic, it shows some of the many pieces of Auburn, the pieces that make the city so great. From our events to our employees to our natural resources and public art. There's a similar graphic on the back of the report as well with our zip code, and you'll be seeing those again in other documents in the months ahead. So the plan itself has some very worthwhile content. I'm sure you'll agree once you have a chance to read it. First, and perhaps most importantly, it shows our various mission and vision statements, as you can see there. It includes the strategic plan vision statement, this council's own vision statement, our city motto, and my department's own mission statement, which is that Auburn's Communications and Engagement Department will be the best source of information about city government, providing innovative and creative communication solutions and sharing effective, compelling stories, messages, maps, and graphics that foster positive community engagement and meaningful connections with our stakeholders. So there's a few components to this plan, like any good plan. We define the plan's purpose, our strategy for communications and engagement in Auburn, our target audience, we need to know who we're speaking to, our tactics and tools, my favorite part, the plan goals, how we're going to measure success, our strategy and schedule, our branding standards, and certain lenses to apply. So the plan defines our current communications goals, the things we're already doing every day, in and out, but it also establishes some new goals and talks about how we're going to attempt to measure our success, which I think is a very important part of this entire effort. So one of my favorite parts of the plan, I think I already said this, is the goal setting. We have the list of current goals, and our team will be attacking, I'll use that word, looking at and implementing some of these goals that you see here in the near future, let's say. So you can see some of these are short-term, some are long-term, from 3 to 6 months, some 6 months to a year, some multiple years. Short-term goals, examples of those that we'd like to start doing is an events calendar, something beyond our government meeting calendar that's already on the website. A brand standards manual, which talks about logo usage and things like that. We're hoping to look into getting some swag for community engagement. Reusable shopping bags are very popular right now. Things like that. Slightly longer term goals that we're considering and we're going to look at are relocation guides. This was defined within the strategic plan, as well as the potential for a passport program for visitors and for residents. And Neighborhood signage is another one that emerged from the strategic plan. Slightly longer term, and there's one more there that I wanted to point out, the possibility for a public swag store. We currently have one for our employees to be able to go on, and for council, to be able to go on and get apparel and drinkware and bags and cool things that show off our Auburn brand. Well, we'd like to bring this to the public as well, because I think there's a lot of people within our community and fans of our community that would like to wear that logo wear with pride. The other longer-term goals that I think we need to prioritize, but are going to take a bit of time, but I wanted to get them on your radar and also within the plan, are a city app, a mobile app for phones that I think we can use to really connect in a whole new way. And believe it or not, we are on year 10 with our current website, which I think it might be time for a refresh. So we're going to start looking at the potential for a new website in the next year or two. So final thoughts to keep in mind as you're reviewing the plan. Remember that this is a living, evolving, changing document. My team is going to review it quarterly at minimum. We're going to do that to discuss progress toward our goals, to check in on the timeline and the measurables, to make sure we're collecting feedback, and to make course adjustments and updates to the plan as needed. We will also submit an annual written report to the city manager that will be shared with the manager. With the public, we'll include it in the city's annual report each year. This is a multi-year plan intended to be adjusted and enhanced as technology advances, new communications tools become available, and as the city's own mission evolves, this plan will change accordingly. So that's it from me. Helping you catch up on your timing.
Do we have any questions for Liz? Any questions for Liz at this time? Anybody? No? Okay. Thank you for the communication.
My pleasure.
Oh, wait, okay. Nope, keep on. Next, we have an update from Dan Goyette and Travis Peasley on the Lewiston Auburn Water Protection Committee. Can't remember what A stands for. LAPACA. What's the last A stand for? Authority.
Authority. Good evening. My name is Travis Peasley. I'm the general manager of the Lewiston Auburn Water Pollution Control Authority. It's a mouthful, so we just say LAPCA. I know it can be confusing with some of the other acronyms, but LAPCA is who we are. So the authority is actually located over on Lincoln Street in Lewiston. We service over 35,000 domestic users between the two cities, and really we only have two customers. So life's pretty easy for us. Our customers are the City of Lewiston and the Auburn Sewer District. And the way we handle that is we apportion all the costs based on a flow and strength of material that comes to us. We do have 16 significant industrial users between the two cities, and we receive septage from 26 surrounding communities. Our facility is designed for 14.2 million gallons per day, but we can treat up to 32 million, making us the second largest wastewater facility in the state. Flows over 32 million go to something called a combined sewer overflow. I'm going to get to a large project in a little bit here. Auburn does have hydraulic predominance. It's important to know when we're talking the CSO project, and what that means is we don't throttle any flow from Auburn. We do, however, throttle flow from Lewiston. The flow comes under what's called the triple barrel siphon. It's just 3 pipes underneath the river, down off River Road. And we do own a compost facility on Penley Corner in Auburn. So the history is we began operation in '73. That was just about the same time the Clean Water Act went into place, and it was when the Androscoggin was one of the top 10 most polluted rivers. So in addition to environmental protection, which is what we're there for, it's just nice to note the other great public advance there in that the services we're providing are environmental but also health. This is an overview of the plant in Lewiston. There's quite a bit to it. There's actually a significant portion you can't see that's underground. It's worth visiting if you've never been there. We're happy to give tours. I can leave a card with Dan or Phil after this. If anyone's interested, just please reach out. It's worth seeing. This is the compost facility in Auburn. That's, like I said, on Penley Corner Road. The compost facility itself is sited on a 10-acre parcel right in the middle of a 100-acre farm field, so it's pretty well tucked away. This aerial here shows it a little bit better, but it's Penley Corner Road, and just to the south in this photo here is Fox Ridge Golf Course, if you've never been out there to see it. Most people don't even know it exists other than a little 3-foot sign that indicates there's a compost facility back there. For our operations, we are quasi-municipal. We were legislatively chartered back in '73. We do have a 7-member board. Our staff is down a little bit over the last few years. We're right now at 15 staff members, but we do operate the facility 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As you can imagine, the flow does not stop, so it's always being treated. So we rely on technology. The facility is highly automated. We use programmable controllers and a supervisory system that lets us know if anything's not right. There's full alarm systems, and we have people on call all the time. So the 10,000-foot view is the facility is nearing 50 years old, but it is in really good shape. It was built very robustly, lots of big, thick concrete structures. We have gone through the last 10 years and just done an aggressive overhaul of the internals through external into the paving, a lot of concrete repairs outside, new roofing, and lots of energy improvement projects. We do operate anaerobic digestion. I don't get into that much here, but we've presented a few times in the past on that. It's a process we put in 2013 that what it does is it reduces the volume of the biosolids, the back-end product we have to manage by over 50%, but it also creates a biogas in the form of methane. We take that biogas, we run it through 2 reciprocating engines that produce heat to our buildings and electricity for our facility. The compost facility is currently mothballed. It is operationally ready. We have all approvals. We have DEP permits, but it's been mothballed since 2019. Yeah. We do have multiple staff engaged in both our local and regional associations. We have a well-developed asset management and capital improvement plan. And some of our larger projects over the next 5 years are a bar screen project that's going to be happening this spring. We're looking at a solids drying project that's pretty substantial to help reduce the volume of those biosolids off our back end. And then the biggest is the combined sewer overflow storage tank. So I will touch on that one here. So the way the authority works is we have no collection system. We rely on the Auburn Sewer in the city of Lewiston to convey all of the sewage to our facility. Because of the work that's been done over the last 20 years to really button up their systems and to eliminate CSOs on the 2 sides of the cities, all of that flow is now gone through pipe to our facility.
And just to clarify, CSO is a combined sewer overflow. It's when the system can no longer handle what's flowing through it, and it's discharged directly into a water body, i.e. the Androscoggin River.
So the authority is left with because all of that flow is now transported to us, is left with the last major combined sewer overflow outlet that we have to control to a 1-year design storm, meaning we have to eliminate all discharges from that under really what's a 1-year design or a 1-year, one event per year design. So what that equates to is roughly a 3 million gallon storage tank. So during these events where it would normally discharge, it would just be piped over into a big holding tank. It would be held there until we could bring it back into the facility. We did agree with the DP to have this tank built and put online by 2026, but the cost is pretty hefty. As you can see, it's $25 to $30 million to build that size tank. We are hoping to get some federal stimulus money. We should know really in the next couple of weeks if that will happen. We are in the middle of the sizing and the siting of it. We're hoping we can site it on land that we own in front of the treatment plant in Lewiston. The sizing is to be determined because we're trying to do some collection system and treatment plant optimization evaluations to see if we can shrink the size of that tank into something maybe half its size and shrink the cost. To pay for that tank, the model that we used to apportion the Auburn sewer and City of Lewiston didn't work. That was based on flow and strength, so we contracted with CDM Smith to look at a different cost model. They came up with what seems like something very logical, which is just to use that incremental wet weather, really the contribution from a wet weather event, which is the reason why you would need that large storage tank. Doing that and running the historicals on the contributions from the two entities, it basically came out to a 70-30 split. So that's the model that the authority has accepted and will be moving forward with. And we're going to be looking at those flows basically annually, but using a 3-year average to apportion the cost of that tank back to those two entities. So biosolids is something.
I'm sorry. Could
Sorry.
we just, before you keep going on, I think that's an important part. If we could, just a little bit more history, especially for some of the newer counselors, but refreshing here too. We've done a lot of investment as a city in order to maintain or minimize our CSO overflow over the last 5+ years. Correct, Dan?
It's been 20 years, but yes.
Okay, 20 years. That's a sizable taxpayer investment versus a ratepayer investment on sewer, because it does include the street sewer, correct?
The city contribution, we have allocated, well, we haven't done it in probably 4 or 5 years, but the city was making a contribution to Auburn Sewer towards the CSO separation, and it would average $1 million to $2 million, but the ratepayer was picking up the majority portion of that CSO work.
So did that actually have a tangible effect? Did that limit
Absolutely.
our CSO
Yes.
substantially?
The
Overflow?
If Sid were here, he could tell you the flow, but it went from sort of order of magnitude, say 100 million gallons of CSO overflow to 3 million gallons of CSO overflow.
From Auburn?
Yeah. Those numbers
Roughly.
are wrong, but that's the order of magnitude.
Substantial.
Did Lewiston make a sizable investment as well?
Lewiston has made a very sizable investment. Unfortunately for them, their system is a lot older than our system, so theirs is a lot harder to separate. There aren't as many opportunities for separation work, so they've not had, say, we were 100 to 3, they're 100 to 20.
Mm-hmm.
So they still have a lot more work to do than, say, Auburn, but both communities are moving forward.
So this cost apportionment is based upon usage.
Essentially, imagine a dry day and all of a sudden it rains. That's how much added flow goes to the plant from each of those communities. So if Lewiston does a really good job and separates a lot more, their percentage could go down and Auburn's could go up.
Okay.
So that's why we're using a 3-year rolling average.
Travis, I like the 3-year rolling average that Dan just mentioned, because we're going to be having the new high school online here soon. The high school was a big contributor to our CSO, correct?
1 million gallons, yeah.
The current high school.
Yes.
And then when we transfer that, are we
0.
collecting all of that, so it'll be 0? All right.
So automatically in 4 or 5 years, once the rolling average resets, then our contribution towards the bond payments will potentially go down.
Correct.
Depending on the 3-year.
Right. I mean, they could make a huge investment in Lewiston. and
Correct.
then- Right. But still, we're making the efforts now through infrastructure in order to hopefully lower our need for this.
Correct.
But the facility will still be built for the 35 million gallons. So I mean, we can't unsize a facility.
Well, Travis and his work with the authority's consultant for this project is working to do that with plant upgrades and improvements to the system in both Lewiston and Auburn, identifying those easy fixes, well, not easy, but those fixes that would have substantial effect on the size of the tank that we need.
Okay. Steve, you're a representative, city council representative on this board. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would add, the city of Lewiston took ARPA money allocated towards the down payment for the
Correct.
for the tank, because it's not part of the city of Auburn. The ratepayers bonded $4 million towards,
On the Auburn Sewer
from the
Department
Auburn
side,
Sewer Department.
which is something very few people don't realize, that
Right.
Auburn Sewer is not part of the city. Well, I will think, as we move on, just one last thing. I'll open up if you all have any questions, Counselor, as well, but I've always appreciated the apportionment schedule. It's probably the fairest, most resetting cost appropriation between the two cities out there, period, bar none. So thank you for that management on that. I really do appreciate it. Thanks. Council, do you have any questions on this topic right now, CO2 or COS, CSO? No? Okay, continue. Thank you.
Okay, on to biosolids. This is a hot topic, so I figured I would start with our history. And from the time the facility was built until '92, basically all the material went up to the River Road in Lewiston. There was some land given from the city of Lewiston to the Lopka to landfill it. In 1987, we began land application of biosolids. That's basically, at the time, it was lime stabilizing these materials, transporting them to farms anywhere an hour north or south of Lewiston, Auburn area. And at the time, there were over 20 sites that we were land applying to. In 1992, we built a compost facility over in Auburn and began operating that. And then in 2013, things changed substantially in that we put that anaerobic digestion project online and we shrunk the volume of material in half. And when we did that, we really didn't have a need for the composting facility. All of our material went to land application. So we started operating from 13 to 18, essentially as a merchant, and we were bringing in other facility materials, we were composting it, and then we were turning that around and selling compost to local landscape companies, contractors, and then, the mom and pops. In 2019, PFAS, that's the buzzword, the regulations got implemented up in the DEP, and that shut down 3/4 of the land application sites we were applying at. And that has really has not changed in the last 2 years. So from 19 through 21, we've been operating with 25% of our material going to land application, 75% of it going to landfill. In 2020, we did a little pilot study at our compost facility, and we basically operated it without an odor control system. As I showed you earlier, we're tucked away out in the middle of a farm field. The digested solids really don't have much, if any, odor. So it was easy to operate without odor control. We did a successful pilot. We got city approval, we got DEP approval to operate, but we continued to just keep the facility mothballed. There are some infrastructure needs. Through all of that, we had staff leave, so we didn't really have the staff to operate. And there's been tremendous uncertainty around PFAS. So we just have really parked that facility for going on 4 years now. In 2022, our plan and what we've budgeted for is to go 100% to landfill. We are not planning to land apply materials this year. We're, of course, not composting. And we're trying to follow where the regulations are with PFAS, where all the science is leading to, and try to make the most informed decision we can with what our biosolids management options are. So one of the things we're looking at, I noted earlier, as a substantial project would be a thermal drying project. If we're left to landfill 100% of our material, that gets really expensive really quickly. Landfill capacity is shrinking, and the costs are skyrocketing. So with thermal drying, it's a process where we would take our material that is 20% solids, 80% water. We would evaporate the water into something that's 90% solids, 10% water. So less product to have to landfill, to truck around. There's a lot of benefits to it. It just comes at a price. The downside is it does not treat PFAS, so it's simply a volume reduction project, and it's very expensive. It's right now looking between $11 and $12 million. We have a 30% design. So internally, the authority is evaluating where we take that design while we try to understand where all the regulations are going. It is 2 years from a notice to proceed, so even if we decided today we wanted to go that route, we're probably landfilling for the next couple of years while this process gets up and running. So PFAS, you may know some of this, so I apologize if I'm repeating, but they are ubiquitous in our homes and environment. They're literally in everything. If you just do a little Google search, you'll see they're everywhere. And I say we, society really has been asking for them. Manufacturers have been providing them, so source is certainly the issue. At LOPCA, we don't use PFAS. We're just also not designed to treat for them. We don't use them in our processes. They're just simply part of society. They get flushed down the drains, they come to us. We're not designed to treat them, and they just sit there at end of pipe. Over the last couple of years, they have increased our management cost over $300,000, and that's simply not land applying and having to go to landfill. Those will likely go up another $100,000 to $200,000 by going to complete landfilling for 2022 forward. The regulations, the pathways of concern, all the health impacts, everything is still highly uncertain. So we're trying to wait and see and wait for science, but it's hard to do when everything else is sort of crashing in around you. We do test for PFAS. We're required to do it twice a year, as well as all of our farm sites we've ever gone to and abutters within a half a mile are all part of a DEP testing program that's ongoing. There is currently no distinguishment between highly contaminated, and when I say that, I'm talking like what you see in the news in Fairfield and Arundel. Those are highly contaminated sites, which are much different than what the majority of land application sites are. There's a background level, which is just part of what society gives to people, and then there are places that are impacted by industries that were using these products that got through into the facilities and then got land applied. There are no destruction technologies for wastewater or biosolids. All the treatment technologies you hear about are for drinking water, and that really is just activated carbon filtration at the moment. We will soon be testing our effluent. That's the water leaving the plant, and it's likely limits will be put on that. And from the authority standpoint, we're just strong supporters of elimination of these products. There's not much we can do once they get to us, so we're advocating for elimination of all non-essential PFAS. And this was just a cool little thing, just to show you, small sense of where PFAS are at. There was an article yesterday just about the amount in your Whopper packaging and your Starbucks coffee cups. It's sort of crazy how prevalent it is in society. So I don't like ending on PFAS, but that was the end of my updates, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody?
I do just have one. With that, could you go back to the thermal slide?
Thermal drying, yep.
So end all be all, what would be the best benefit and what would happen with that, the leftover, the residual?
So it's really a volume reduction. So for us right now, we're being forced to landfill, and landfill headspace is limited. So the more limited it becomes, the higher the cost is to send it. And as the cost goes up, there's more benefit in reducing the volume you're bringing to a landfill. So for us, we would just be evaporating water instead of driving water to a landfill and then paying per ton for it. So depending on where those costs go at a landfill, you can quickly justify a project like this on a volume reduction standpoint.
Okay. And there's no way to recycle this water?
So the water would be evaporated at our facility and it would come back into our stream.
Prior to this, sorry.
Prior to this, yep.
Yeah.
But there's still a tiny amount that goes out with that product. It ends up being 90 to 92% dry, but there's still that 8% that's 10% that's water.
Okay.
And that product right now would not have a home based on PFAS regulations. It would still have to go to landfill.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Councilor Moore?
Thank you for that presentation, Travis. I appreciate that. So on the thermal drying project, do you know currently what your costs are for landfilling, like last year?
Right now, we pay $95 per ton. And that's one of the cheaper prices out there. There's a lot of facilities that are seeing $130 to $150 per ton.
And do you have a typical annual tonnage that you need to?
We,
landfill?
around 6,500 tons.
That adds up quick.
It does.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Walker?
Yeah, thank you for your report. I get one question. We had a lady that came forward there a week ago and said that pollution happened at Penley Corner. Are you still investigating that in any way, or is that all set at this time?
I'm not exactly sure what she's referencing, but the Penley Corner, so behind the compost facility and across the road, we owned the what was referred to as the Lipson farm. Those were sites that we land applied over the years, and those sites are being tested by the DEP, both the soils and the waters and all the abutters around them. I don't know the status of the testing. I believe that was happening this year, but the DEP hasn't disclosed the timing of their testing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We appreciate your time and your hard work on this.
Thank you. You good?
Next, council communication. Let's go around to the left, starting with Councilor Staples. Do we have any communication for the council?
We have a Sustainability and Natural Resource Board meeting on Thursday at 6, right here, council's chambers.
Are you participating in that, or?
You told me to for the street tree thing, so I called the meeting.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't think anyone actually listened to me. Perfect, thank you. Councilor Walker?
Once in a while. Yes, I'd just like to thank Phil for coming to United New Auburn Association last Tuesday night, and we had over 30 people there to listen to him. Did a great job. Nobody threw any rocks at him, so
That's a victory.
the evening was great.
Councilor Moran?
Nothing at this time.
Councilor Wilkes?
Not at this time.
Councilor Hawes?
All set, thanks.
Councilor Whiting?
All set,
Well, no more cross-country skiing updates?
all gone.
Oh, God. Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was contacted by a few Auburn citizens about the proposed planning board meeting next week, and they asked if there's anything we could do to move it from here, where it's limited space, to a much bigger venue, like maybe the senior center or the technical college.
Mr. Manager? I haven't heard any, I have not.
Yeah, Councilor Gary brought this up to me before the workshop. One thing that I shared was that there is a challenge with participation for those meetings and being able to watch it. What we did here for feedback before was that when people are asking questions, you can't hear the questions because all we're doing is we're trying to just take a small camera and stream that. We don't have the same technology that we do in here, so there'd be a downside. We can certainly look to see if the senior center's available and make that adjustment, but there would be a downside to people being able to not participate, but at least be able to view it from home. That's the only concern, but I have not talked to staff. I'm not sure what we would be thinking about for numbers. Even the numbers that we had when we decided to move to the senior center for their maybe one of the presentations that we did, the numbers would have allowed for us to continue in these two rooms, like we do now with streaming one of the rooms into the chamber, and then people being able to come in and speak. So that we have some options there. We're not opposed to it. I'm concerned about those that are watching from home. It's just not the same quality. That's the big.
I just recommend defer the staff and the chair of the planning board. It's their committee.
We'll
and they
speak
have
with
it
them.
better. So, thank you. I have council communications. I got several things. First of all, Auburn Exchange Club tomorrow, Gippers, noon, their annual scholarship award ceremony. It's exciting. They give out thousands of dollars in scholarships. The Auburn Exchange Club is a foundation to this community. Second, Maine RV and Camp Show happened this weekend. Just got this update. Over 5,000 people attended. Vendors sold out of equipment. They're talking about next year, doubling space. That is a massive economic boost to the city of Auburn. Huge. And those are people from all over New England. April 6th, which is Wednesday, I'll be speaking and we'll be having the ribbon cutting for Dare Go Safety right here on Main Street. A relocating company from another part of Auburn down to our downtown There'll be an open house and ribbon cutting then. I believe that's at noon on Wednesday as well. More information can be found on the Metro Chambers of Commerce website. Also, I just got this, I don't have many details, but the Maine Gladiators youth hockey team, 14U, under 14 years of age, won their national hockey tournament in someplace far, far away just today. I think it was Minnesota or something, so round of applause. Tennessee, I don't know. I know we sent 3 or 4 teams out, and that's pretty awesome. Lastly, I've been drawn into a residential conflict concerning ice out on Taylor Pond, so I hereby proclaim that ice out on Taylor Pond is today, April 4th, 2022. Please stop calling me and ask me to settle it. It is settled. And I did check Taylor Pond. Sure as enough, that thing's iced out. There ain't a bit of ice anywhere. So that solves that neighborhood squabble. Turn it over to the manager.
Nothing under the council report.
Okay, moving on to open session. First open session of the night. Members of the public are invited to speak to the council about any issue directly related to city business, which is not on tonight's agenda. If you'd like to speak, please step up to the podium, give us your name, address, and limit your comments to approximately 3 minutes.
My name's Maureen O'Brien. I live at 42 Winter Street. Lived there almost 40 years. I want to talk tonight about the public works. In our neighborhood, when they repaved and redid the streets, they put a pink rubber pad on the corners of all the curbs. They lasted for about a year. They've been torn up and they look terrible. The ones that were made with metal are fine, but as long as the city is redoing or seems to have money to redo projects, I'd like them to fix that problem. It looks horrible. It's in my neighborhood, and it's important that you keep up with the public works.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to speak during the first open session? None being, I'll close the first open session and we'll move on to the agenda. We have unfinished businesses next. Next is ordinance 12-03212022, amending the Code of Ordinance, section 2-255, appointment term for the assessor. It's a second reading. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept.
Second.
A motion for Councilor Walker and a second for Councilor Whiting. Anybody in the public like to speak? None being, I'll bring it back to the council. Council, any debate? Second reading. None being, I'll ask for a vote. Roll call vote, please. I'm sorry. No, roll call vote.
Councillor Hawes.
Yes.
Councillor Milks.
Yes.
Councillor Moran.
Yes.
Councillor Walker.
Yes.
Councillor Staples.
Yes.
Councillor Gary.
Yes.
Councillor Whiting.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. New business. This is a resolve. It's resolve 02-04042022, supporting the utilization of Maine's dual enrollment and dual curriculum program. Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion for Councilor Walker, second for Councilor Hawes. Before I open this up to the public, I'd just like to give a little explanation. This is, and we can bring it back to council afterwards too. This is a resolve that I drafted based upon my experience on the school committee, talking with businesses, you as counselors, individually and as small groups, our businesses and our students, and looking at what we have for options at the state level, also looking at what other communities, primarily outside of Maine, are doing in order to maximize pathways for foundational jobs within the economy of Auburn in order to achieve economic sustainability, multiple pathways of possibility and opportunity for our students, and a decrease in overall debt occurred through the post-secondary pathway, if you would, okay, or education. There's a lot of other good reasons. I'd love to talk about this more. It's obviously in your packet, but I just wanted to give you that explanation. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak on this resolution? Not being, bring it back to the council. Council, ask away. This is kind of it's a resolution. Let me just, one of the first ones we've had in front of this council. Resolutions are non-binding. It's different from an order, but it is a way this body can communicate its intent on policy. It's a way this body can actually help guide the fact-finding, if you would, of folks that would like to look at making things better or hope to do. This is part of our job, is to guide that process. We had some input from the school committee, primarily the chairwoman, and there's a part that one of the last paragraphs about adding a work group I normally would not be that prescriptive in a resolution, but she would like it in there, and Mr. Manager, correct me if I'm wrong on that. And so that's a great, great sign. But let me give you the real workings and how this could work. For example, Telstar Academy in Bethel, Maine, a couple years ago had an arrangement that every single senior at Telstar could attend full-time at Central Maine Community College for free. Half of that is picked up by the state, the other half is picked up by a grant. 2/3 of the high school seniors at Telstar went to CMCC, graduated from Telstar, participated in sports at Telstar, but also had 1 year of fully transferable academic credits, or were career ready upon graduation in the trades, carpentry, plumbing, HVAC, so forth. That's one example. Another example, to be more to the letter of the state law, is that every single high school student in Maine is authorized to take up to 2 credit-earning courses a semester their entire 4 years of high school. That is almost a full associate's degree, earned credit, transferable credit upon graduation. Utilizing USM's tuition rates, that's a $30,000 savings for the average family to put their child through school because it's already done. If you look at a Central Maine Community College, it's closer to a $10,000 to $12,000 savings. The big thing is they are career ready on day one when they graduate. So we do have some findings of fact in here. Hopefully you all read it, but for the public, if you haven't, we had over 190 roughly students go to the LRTC program in Lewiston. A lot of trades, healthcare, public safety, so forth. We only have 53 to 60 slots. So the demand is there. Talking to our businesses, the demand is there, absolutely. And that we're hearing it every single day. So this is kind of getting that process going. So I'll leave it at that, and that's the Resolve program. We'd love to have something in place for our students in fall of 2022. So fairly quickly. It's pretty aggressive, but this is one of those things that we have to provide opportunities. It's in our vision statement, possibilities. This is one of the best opportunities that I can think of to get our students ready for careers and for our businesses to have a steady flow of good workers that are making unbelievably high wages. So, questions? Comments? Where am I going? Starting on the left. Councilor Staples?
Yeah, sure. I fully support this. I think this is a great idea, and I would like to see this be used to maybe hedge some of the curriculum offerings for our students. I know there's always a student or two, or quite a few actually, that are looking for an additional opportunity that might not be offered by the high school, and this is an amazing opportunity for those students. So I can't wait to see this happen.
Give you one example right now. Due to the unfortunate untimeliness of the high school schedule and compared to the community college and university schedules, we only have 2 Edward Little High School students attending classes at the University of Southern Maine. We have 3 attending classes at Central Maine Community College out of a student population of 1,000. We do have around 80 to 100, I'm not sure if they're unique students or not, that could be doubling up, taking college classes on campus through dual enrollment. That's wonderful. But there's certain things that's very heavily focused towards a liberal arts degree versus anything in those foundational jobs within the trades. So just to be fair, we are getting a lot of college credits into our students right now, but it is focused into that 4-year liberal arts traditional education, if you would. Other questions? Councilor Walker?
Yeah, I echo Councilor Staple there, and I think this is great for our little students, so it was something great that you brought forward.
Thank you.
I too am in full support of this, graduate of the community college and of Edward Little High School. I think it's innovative. I think it creates some potential for education publicly here in Auburn that isn't available elsewhere. And I think it has the opportunity to bring something that I think the hardworking staff at the college level and at the high school level deserve as a bit of prestige and something unique that we can offer. I also know that the community college has a really nice 2-and-2 partnership with the University of Maine, Lewiston, Auburn, and this could expedite a process in many different ways towards an associate's in trades, towards nursing. It could also be an accelerated way towards a bachelor's degree. I think it's wonderful, and I think it's exciting to explore what the opportunities could provide at a much lower cost to people and families that might have seen the financial commitment as a barrier.
Any other comments, questions? Councilor Gary? Councilor Whiting? Then
I'll let
Councilor Gary?
Council Whiting.
Yeah, I think this is great in terms of increasing options for students, and it's good for aspirations. They might consider something that they wouldn't otherwise, and if this is a little more organized, it's been around for a while. I mean, when I was in school, you could go to Bates. I didn't have the grades to go to Bates.
But wait, you went to Harvard.
But I went to Harvard.
That
so
says something, but.
whatever. It's just increasing options, which is a good thing.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is the greatest idea to help level the playing field for a lot of students whose families may be on a fixed income due to whatever circumstances. This will open the door, and it will give kids or high school students that positive push that they may not have got, because they might have said, I can't afford to go to college. I'll just go, do whatever little things I can find around town. But this will help these students to dream bigger and better things. So kudos.
And here, in Auburn.
Yes.
I'd just like to acknowledge that I think this kind of change is challenging for our education system and for the teachers and for the administration, and we're asking them by this to adapt and change, and I acknowledge that that's difficult. And so, but it's a tremendous opportunity, and there's a huge, huge need, and I'm not going to repeat what everybody else has said, but I encourage the school department, and I'm very glad that Chairwoman Matthews has been willing to engage with you on this, and I thank them for that, and I just want to encourage them to, this is something that is much needed in our society, this renovation and evolution of education. And so I encourage them and thank them for their participation.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mayor.
Oh, Mr. Manager?
Yeah, just real quick, I just want to make sure I'm reiterating the conversation I had with the superintendent. As you talked about some of the obstacles, and you mentioned the schedule, one thing that she did share with me is those that do attend, they currently adjust those schedules. So those, even though they have many that have kids in high school know they have red, white days, even though they're on those fixed schedules, those that do go to the community college or to Lewiston Auburn College, their schedules are adjusted so that they are able to maintain that schedule back in school. Obviously not ideal and perfect, but they do make those adjustments for those who want to attend. So I just want to make sure that was clear.
Do you have something?
Well, seeing everybody else went, I guess I should. I have one clarifying question. If they were to enroll in this, do they have to accept one specific idea or trade and run with it? Or could it give them the ability to test out different areas to see what they really want to do? Because in my experience, working in the community college system, is most of the first and second year students have no idea what they want to do. So this would potentially give them the opportunity to explore different avenues and then make a better decision.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make sure that
It's
they're
a
not
regular-
fixed to one thing.
It's a regular course catalog that you pick up. You have, obviously, let's say your senior year, you have to maintain that fourth year of English. So you have to take an English, a 101 English class at CM in order to graduate from high school. But yes, you can check out and explore. There's also, and I think this triggers something else too, and it's a different way of thinking, our LRTC and CTE programs at Lewiston and at the future Edward Little have been focused on a kind of a bottom-up solution, a high school up, not looking at all the assets that we have holistically. Orientations could happen freshman, sophomore year through CTE programs, seeing engaging interest in order to say that, oh wait, I don't want to be a plumber. Electrician though, that might work better. And then they're going, and it increases their odds of success. That's just one example. Scheduling, opportunities, opening up pathways, all those need to be adjusted, but this is a deeper way of thinking when we're looking at the goal and the means towards that goal versus the opposite. So I'm excited. I don't know what's going to happen. I have had calls with senior officials at both community colleges and the University of Southern Maine just recently. I've gathered data. I've listened to examples in Connecticut and in Massachusetts and at Telstar. And in Massachusetts, you can graduate high school with an LPN. And then you've got just a couple years and you're working and becoming an RN. So this is the norm in a lot of other states, just not in Maine. So hopefully we can all learn from that during this work group. I'd be excited to see how this work group comes together. Okay, with that said, I'm going to ask for a vote. This is a resolution. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? None being, passes 7-0. Next, public hearing on the proposed charter amendments. I'm going to open this up to the public as it is a public hearing. Are there any motion? I don't have a motion on this.
I just put the public hearing before the vote.
Before the vote? Okay, oh, very
Yeah, the
good.
vote
Just
is
because we already had the first vote.
No, the vote is right after the public hearing. I just separated them where sometimes I,
Got it. Okay, so public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak? If so, please step up to the podium, say your name, address, limit your comments to 3 minutes. These are changes from the charter that are primarily have to do with the school. Remember this from our first vote? Nobody from the public? I'll bring this back. Next is Order 49-04042022, authorizing the proposed charter amendments to be placed on a referendum ballot and submitted to the voters in Auburn on June 14th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
Motion to move.
Second.
I got a motion, Councilor Walker, second from Councilor Staples. I'm going to open this up again. Any comment from the public on this? No, I'll bring it back to the council. Council, any debate? I just want to give you one note here, too. Remember, if you vote in favor of submitting this to the voters, it's going to require total votes of at least 30% of the total ballots cast at the last gubernatorial election. Total ballots cast in 2018 was 9,755. So 30% would be 2927. And if passed, the changes will take effect on July 1, 2022. This is a off election cycle school budget. Sue, last voter counts on the last school budget were roughly?
well, it was just the school budget, so we had a very small turnout, about 4%. But the average of the last 3 gubernatorial primaries, we averaged around 3,700 for
And this is a
turnout.
primary season.
Right.
Okay. With uncontested primaries on both sides. Okay, so there is a possibility that this could go to the general election in November if we do not achieve a 30% threshold.
I would have to look into that. I don't know if we would be able to put it on the ballot in November, but we could look into that.
If we don't put it in the ballot in November and we do not have a 30% turnout, then it could stop forever. With that said, I would like to give instruction to the council, a recommendation, that we table this until a date certain of sometime in June or July to send this to the November election. I'm just recommending. I can't make the motion. Do we understand why, though? Because if this goes in front of June election and we do not get a 30% show up or 30%, then it's kind of dead in the water.
I move to table this to a date specific, date certain in June, and we've got a date for a meeting in June.
Just one, there is criteria as far as the timing goes, so we're April, I would say probably September, not
September?
June. Yes,
Okay, to put it on the ballot for November.
yes.
Okay, so September, no later than September 7th.
End of September, yeah.
I think we get the first meeting there. Let me just check real quick. I've got a motion on the floor to table this to a date certain. That date certain would be
No later than the end of September.
no later than, can't even believe we're talking about September. No later than September 19th. Okay.
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second for Councilor Staples. All those in favor of the motion to table?
Point of information, will it give Sue enough time to have ballots printed?
For November?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, that's all I want to make
yes.
sure.
That was brought before you tonight because to get the ballots printed for the June was requiring us to get this done tonight.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion, or the amendment? The tabling, yes, 7-0. This is now tabled September 17th. Moving on. Approving the allocation of ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act funds to be used to purchase a Quint fire truck. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion, Counselor Walker, second for Counselor Milks. Open this up to the public for comment. Anybody from the public like to comment? No? Okay, bring this back to the council. Chief Chase? You might want to, yeah. Any questions for Chief Chase on the purchase of a Quint? None? I have one. 3 years ago, we were told the Quints were no good. And why are we purchasing another one? Maybe it's 4 years, your predecessor.
It wasn't him.
Well, I can tell you there are operational challenges with Quints. They're designed to work as both an engine and an aerial truck. That was done as a staffing efficiency when we took on EMS transport. It allowed us to not add a bunch of staff in order to do EMS transport because the truck up there to the Center Street station could play dual role with the same staffing level. The Center Street station before EMS transport used to have both an engine and a ladder truck there. That engine staff was reassigned to rescues, which allowed for the staffing efficiencies. So it is a difficult model, but it is a model that we are resigned to in order to be able to still have a ladder truck in the city, which is vitally important, but still provide a pumper responding in the district that truck is assigned to as well. So, short of a staffing overhaul, which would be to staff another engine so we have it in that district, we'll have to continue with the Quint model to have a deployment model that works.
Is that cost $1,300,000? Is that the cost?
No, sir. That was what their estimate was when we put together the FY20 budget. Costs are increasing significantly. And so our current budget estimate, or the current estimate for the truck that we're speccing is $1.65 million. And we've been notified by the vendor that they'll have their second price increase this calendar year, effective May 1st. So we're looking to get approval and be able to execute pretty quickly before. And that could be as much as an 8% increase May 1st, which is about another $130,000. So we're trying to get it. Okay. That's the essence of the urgency.
And that's the essence of your savings, is 8% not off sticker, but off anticipated cost increase.
Off the predicted cost increase, yes.
Councilor Halls?
Councilor Walker mentioned the staffing part of my question. The second part is, do we have a place to put this and store it?
Yeah, so this truck will fit where our current Quint is, which is up to Center Street. I think you're asking the question because our ultimate plan is to get that moved to Central Station. It's a better district with more hydrants and the buildings that better suit that as a first response. The Quint model being up there has just been out of necessity, but hopefully, so it will still go up, this new truck will still go up there just as the old one did, until such time as we have a public safety facility that would allow us to facilitate moving that to the central district on Minot Ave.
Perfect, thank you.
That's Greg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in actuality, we'll have the two Quints, the old one and the new one.
No, the old one will go away after we've got the new one in service, and that'll go out to bid for sale in some regard. That's a difficult thing right now. Another fact that kind of changed with this, again, so all the manufacturers are seeing long lead times with regard to parts, and they're also having staffing issues. So what used to be a 9-month build for a truck is now 18 months. So what we'll have to do as we get closer to a delivery date on the new truck is try to broker ours out for sale at some point in the future. It was hard. It wasn't in our interest to try to get a trade-in value on that, being so far out from delivery, because we were going to be lowballed, not knowing what kind of condition the truck would be in 18 months. So we'll go through a sale process with that. We actually did that post-buy sale with a rescue that we just did. And the vendor was offering us $10,000 on trade-in, and we got $30,000 on private sale for it. So that tends to be a better way for us to go, is to get it brokered and sell something after we buy the new one.
Thank you.
The condition still must be in pretty good shape, though. I mean, we don't have a lot of age on it.
It doesn't have a lot of age, but you'd be hard-pressed to find fire trucks with the kind of mileage that we put on in Auburn. We've got 95,000 to have a fire, and so a year and a half from now, that's going to be well over 100 to 110,000 miles. You don't see fire trucks with that kind of mileage typically. We have a very big response district, and we run a lot of calls. So it'll be a condition of mileage, but we do think there'll be definitely be some sale value in it for it. It'll sell. I actually am anticipating that there'll be a really robust, because lead times are so long and costs are so high, there's going to be a pretty robust market. It's just hard. I don't want to pigeonhole us into the cost of what that is now, because the condition will change, and also I think the market's going to improve. We've always done better on doing those private sale rather than, in my experience, than trying to get a trade-in value where the dealer is also looking to make some additional money.
Thank you very much, Chief. I will say, please pass my thanks along to the staff for responding to yesterday's fire off Minot Avenue, too.
I'll certainly do
that.
that.
That could have been a lot worse.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this point in time, again, this is American Recovery Protection Act money, so we are using federal money. There is, as we stated and the council stated before, you're looking for a return on investment. I think it's there's definitely a return on investment on this, albeit not high, but potentially with the with the potential of resale for the current quint, it could be a little bit better than what we're looking at right now on paper. So, with that said, I'm going to ask for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? None. Passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
You can order it.
You can order it.
Post haste.
The city manager has his American Express card ready for you. We'll see if we can handle it.
That's a platinum, too.
This is personal, too. Yeah, right. Next is Order 51-04042022, approving the allocation of American Rescue Plan funds to use to build a new police athletic league center. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Councilor Gary, second by Councilor Walker. I'm going to open this up to the public. For anybody who would like to speak, please step to the podium, name, address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Maureen O'Brien, 42 Winter Street. I first read about this when it was in the paper back in December. I have a lot of concerns about it. Number one, that the city went ahead with having a pro bono design done. Again, without talking to anyone in the community in this neighborhood about this plan. $8.6 million. That's a lot of money. I don't understand why the city goes ahead with plans without consulting anyone in the community about it. It's the first time I heard about it. And I just don't understand what the point is. Is it just to spend the money? Is that the purpose? The Little Pal Center has already had a lot of upgrades done on it. It has a whole new kitchen in there. Why would they tear down the building and just duplicate it? There's also the building that they built down by the pond in Pettingill that has a kitchen in it. It's never used. There's also Hasty. I mean, why are we duplicating everything? It's a waste of money. The things that the city needs are things like the Little Hasty skating rink, which kids cannot go and skate for free anymore. There's 1 hour of public skating a week for kids in Auburn. We just don't seem to be looking at what the kids in Auburn need, and we're just putting a lot of money into these projects without talking to anyone about it. When the city decided to close down Chestnut Street, again, without talking to anyone about it, I don't understand why you're not trying to reach out to the community in any way. What's the purpose? Is it just to spend the money? I just think that we need to really have some more communication with the citizens in this neighborhood, my neighborhood, before you go ahead with this money.
Is there anybody else who would like to comment on this?
So, my name is Brian Gallagher. I live at 42 Winter Street. That's my wife. The point that she makes, that people make changes to our neighborhood without coming and asking us about it, is a very valid one. I don't know how big an $8 million building is, but I can sit on my back porch and see the PAL Center, and I don't see anywhere near the number of kids that people claim that are using it. Again, had to have a professional kitchen. I think they've baked some cookies. There was a nice size event not too terribly long ago. There was a barbecue to thank people for some reason, but by and large, there's not a lot there. But I think an $8 million building is going to change my view in terms of what I see. We also have, another thing that's happened is when we moved in 39 years ago, we had tennis courts down there. And there was a rec program that had lessons, and that was good. And then it changed to basketball, and that was okay. And there were some events that are annoying if you live in the neighborhood, because they have the loud noise, the loud music and stuff, and they have
Kids.
3-on-3 thing. Not kids, they're adults, but you know, it's basketball. Basketball's in the city, that's okay. But people put up lights, and so there were times when we'd have lights shining on the corner of our house at 11 at night when no one was down there. And then last year, I think it was last year, they took out playground equipment, and they put in this metal thing. I'm not sure what it is. It's something like foosball.
Futsal.
Yeah. I've never seen anyone use it. And it just doesn't make sense. I don't think we needed a pickleball court at Hasty so that you could take the ice rink out, so you could put an ice rink up at Norway Savings Bank. It's just crazy. It's crazy. Keep building buildings all over the city, little buildings usually, that never get used. The ice skating rink down at Hasty. There's a storage thing next to the EL track. You know, there's actually a press box at the softball field at Hasty, and it's just recreational leagues that use that facility. So why do we need a press box? But so that's the thing. I think we waste a lot of money on stuff like this. But one thing we could use is Edward Little has a hell of a swimming team, and we don't have a swimming pool anywhere in the community. And if the $8 million could go toward that, maybe that would be a good idea.
Thank you. I just want to clarify just a couple of things, because, no, you're fine, sir. I don't want to address or enter a debate. I just want, part of my job here is to make sure the council understands the actual process, facts from fiction. We had multiple meetings and presentations from Woodward and Curran, and Simmons Architecture. Well, the one on your desk right now, and it's on our website, is dated December 20th, 2021. That was the initial plan. The conversation, Mr. Manager, if you'd like to step in, has been going on for multiple years at this point?
Yes.
Yeah, multiple years. We have engaged people in the neighborhood. We've had public, open debate. Nothing happens within a vacuum. The futsal court, great point. It hasn't officially opened yet, and it will open this spring, we're hoping. So there's a lot of things we have to work on our communication. I'm sorry, sir. No public. No, I'm sorry, sir. At this, we're not.
When it came out in the paper in December, I called the only person I know on the planning committee. Never heard of it.
Planning board has really no jurisdiction over this, but this is all the city council. We definitely want feedback. We need feedback. But it's impossible for us to reach out to every single person in the city every single time we do anything or have a bit of information, though we'd like to. It is definitely a difficult thing. But I'll bring this back to the council. And for the newer councilors, this has been something that we've been talking about for years. I will state that the PAL Center and their agricultural education program, through the jarring program, is huge. Councilor Gary, you know about that. You've been intimately involved with that point.
Yes.
The needs for commercial kitchens are immense in this community. We know that because we've caught, just in our last contest on Startup Auburn, 2 food purveyors that need commercial kitchens that actually won. So that's just to cover some of those points. Mr. Manager, would you like to start off and talk about those specifics?
I think for the new council and maybe for the public, just so that we're clear what brought us to this point, it was several years ago that the PAL building was a vacant building that was used by Pathways as a daycare center that was no longer being used by Pathways. It was vacant. as chief of the police department at that time, I came before the council and requested that the building be turned over to the PAL Center for use. We applied for a CDBG grant. We received $40,000 to do the commercial kitchen as was described and the upgrades in the building. It was a lot of partnerships that took place to make that happen. We partnered with the National Guard, Lowe's, Home Depot, and a lot of local contractors, as well as LRTC and Youth Build, to make that project come in at $40,000, including the commercial kitchen. The program at the PAL Center has evolved over the years. We've had the Science Through Cooking program, where we've had students that are assigned to Merrill Hill and Franklin come in there as part of their education program. They actually working towards being involved in the culinary profession, so they would come in and be part of a culinary program, cook full meals. They'd also started catering at events for what their training was and what they were acquiring at the time. That group would also be making meals that would then serve to the students when they came in. So they were receiving full hot meals. Many of the students that come in, that might be their dinner when they came in at the end of their program. We've been running programming out of there for several years now, and we are at capacity in that facility pre-pandemic. We are just, during the pandemic, we had to close because if you are familiar with the PAL Center, it's a small building. Our capacity inside isn't much greater than probably 42 people, somewhere in there, I think is what the fire department has it set at. It's a drop-in center, so there's no students that are brought, they must stay inside the building. If you're familiar with that neighborhood, kids come and go. So this was a drop-in center for those students to come in. The work that was done before the PAL Center was open was to evaluate the data in that neighborhood. So we looked at a half square mile around the PAL Center and found that close to 0.25% of the calls for service occur in that half square mile in the city of Auburn. Again, close to 25 to 27% of all the victims of crimes for children are in that half square mile. And then also around the same percentage of children who commit crimes also live in that half square mile. So we knew that was a really specific area within the city that we needed to work on. Before the PAL Center, which is a 501c3, so the money that you're allocating tonight goes to the 501c3. That's the funding that will be provided. ARPA allows for funding to be allocated to a 501c3. So before that 501c3 was created, we worked with the Boys and Girls Club at the time to see if they could maybe look at this as a satellite site for them. It did not meet where they were currently with the changes that were happening within the Boys and Girls Club. At that time, the center was merging with Portland. We had been a standalone center for the most part. We had our own board. I was serving on that board with the Boys and Girls Club at that time. That had changed and evolved and was now a merged board with the city of Portland. So Boys and Girls Club really wasn't in a position to do that. We also connected with the YMCA about their opportunity to provide programming and access out of that building, and they were not in a position at that time to do that. That's when the creation of the PAL 501 was created. There is a board. That board does go have their meetings that review these projects and has been part of this for numerous years. Councilor Whiting, as executive director of Auburn Housing, was assigned was on that board based on his position, and numerous other community members have been part of that. The square footage, one thing that was asked regarding this is a 17,000 square foot facility. One thing that we're looking at is there was a study that was done for the city as it pertained to sports facilities, recreational facilities. One of the things that came out of that study was the lack of gyms for basketball. And so as the PAL board was looking at this, it was also looked to see, could this facility also meet that need of a basketball space as well? And that's what's included in here for consideration. Would it, as was mentioned, would it incur and has done this at no cost, just because they see the value in this program, as we spoke with them, and they've been a partner with the city for many, many years. We're currently probably hitting around 60 to 70 students a day at the center. Again, that's pre-pandemic. Weather's changing. The daylight shift also has an impact. I see people shaking their heads. So we keep a count. So every kid signs in. So we have those numbers. We can provide that to the council so you can see how many kids come into the center. We can go back from day one, from when the building opened. We've always collected data on how many come in, because some of our funding that we provide is through Cdbg. So tracking those numbers and providing reports back out to Cdbg is really important. So a lot happening within that program. A lot more can continue to happen. We are at a capacity as directed by the board, which is what the request. They will be looking for other funds for meeting that difference within this budget. That'll be the 501's responsibility to work towards that. The city contribution would be the $3 million. I can answer any questions. And Rita Beaudry is also here. She's been the secretary treasurer for the PAL board for many years. She can also answer those numbers.
Okay. Very good. So I mean, the goal is, I think to reiterate, I think this is important too, is that for us not to use or a limited amount of local taxpayer dollars too. So leveraging money in ARPA was one of our initial goals. Go to Councilor Gary, then Councilor Staples, and I'm going to ask for a vote. Councilor Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support this project wholeheartedly because it meets the needs of the neighborhood and surrounding streets around the facility. The current building will not hold all the students that would like to go there. I think they have to monitor how many in and how many out. When they're full to capacity, they can't do some of the things that they may want to do, like help kids with their homework and stuff. Sometimes these kids, the only chance they get a snack or a meal is when they come to the senior center. Sorry, I got that on brain too. To the PAL Center. There is no, even though they do have the kitchen and places to store the food, there is no real full-fledged dining room for these kids to eat in, or even their parents. There is no space there if they wanted to put on a holiday meal. They have gardens to help raise vegetables to use in their meals and things. And one of the programs that I really enjoyed that they had was the culinary arts program, where they taught high school students how to cook meals, as well as they were teaching them business skills with making breads and jams and pastries and things. They learned every aspect of operating a business. Right now, the PAL Center is also serving as a place where families can get groceries that they can't always get elsewhere because due to transportation and things. I know that one of the building facilitator that runs the PAL Center, he does a lot of home deliveries of groceries to these families. They've also got a program where they also meet the needs of close to 100 seniors that don't have access to these foods because they too don't have transportation to the food banks and stuff. I participate in one program where boxes of groceries or bags of groceries are delivered to the apartment complex I live at. I see the added benefit of it. I see only great things that this building, once it is built and expanded upon, can do to the community. To help with the education of our students, and also even with the parents. Maybe if we can get it going enough that we can be teaching home skills to the parents, or even business stuff.
A lot of things.
There's just so many good things, and thank you.
No, thank you. Councilor Staples?
Sure. Yeah, I support this project. I think it's a great idea, and I'm looking forward to seeing it come to fruition. One thing that I would encourage once this is built, I would like it to be to have Auburn in the name. So right now I hear Powell Center a lot, and Powell Center, I would just like to see the word Auburn in that name of that building. I think that would be instill a little bit of community pride, and I think that would be something that would be a pretty easy do.
I'd just like to add, I talked to the manager about this before, a goal years ago was to make sure that we had endowment accounts, especially with nonprofits, for perpetual maintenance of facilities too. I think there's different ways that we can actually help boost that along, and we should talk about that over the course of the next several months. The maintenance needs aren't usually there for the first 5 years of a new building, but then after that, the money is, and I want to make sure this isn't a future drain on future council budgets. So that, Councilor Moran?
Yeah, I just want to share one more thing in regards to the new PAL Center. And it makes me think about some of the discussions we had in the workshop in regards to providing access to sports to children K through 6 as well. And I think it's been very public for a lot of people, some of the negative consequences that can happen when we don't have positive outlets for the youth in our community. And I was somebody that was a huge recipient of the Boys and Girls Club in New Auburn. And it kept me off the streets many, many nights when I was at the age where I probably was looking for some trouble. And I went there and I respected the facility and I respected the staff that was there, and I exercised, I played basketball, and I went home. I think there's a lot of positives, and I appreciate Councilor Gary's comments in regards to food insecurity. And that's a very basic human need. And my wife's a public educator, and she sees that in the public education, are kids that are food insecure, and that's a tragedy. And then senior citizens that don't have access. So it's a lot of money, yeah. Like everything's a lot of money these days. But this is a community center. This could really be the heartbeat of that whole neighborhood, because I know that neighborhood very well. And it needs something. And I think it's this.
At this point, I'm going to ask for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? None being passed 7-0. Next is ordinance 13-04042022. Amending Chapter 34, Tobacco and Marijuana Use at Recreation Facilities and Fields, first reading. It's also the public hearing. This is a first reading and public discussion, but the public hearing and second reading will be on the April 19th agenda, okay? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Councilor Halls. Open this up to the public. Anybody in the public would like to speak about allowing tobacco and marijuana at parks?
Mr. Mayor, we do have Corey Brown with us from Healthy Androscoggin, who we've connected with regarding this ordinance. I'm sure I'll put her on the spot and see if she'd like to share it. So, thanks for coming, Corey.
No problem. Thank you. So I am Corey Brown. I'm the Executive Director at Healthy Androscoggin. So just a little bit of history. We started working with the rec department back in 2019 on this amendment, and it's been on hold since then. So I'm really excited that this is finally coming forward. So the basic, what this does is it updates what the policy is to include the new products that have come out of the market since it was originally written, and also expand the definition to meet the state law, to match what the state law's definition of tobacco is. And then also, in the time cannabis became legal, use of it, so it's also making sure that that is included in this policy as well, because it was not beforehand. So that's the reason why this is coming, to update the definitions, to include new products, and to include new products that are now legal.
And Cory,
I can
you'll
answer
also
any questions.
You'll also be able to provide us signage, so there's that component.
We can, if it, with the caveat that if there's any changes to the way it's written, it may no longer qualify. It does have to meet best practice model standards, which this one currently does, in order to qualify for free signage through the Maine CDC and prevention.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
That's it. I'm going to bring this over to any public, debate. Council, anything? Nothing? Very good. I'm going to ask for a roll call vote.
Counselor Hawes?
Yes.
Counselor Milks?
Yes.
Counselor Moran?
Yes.
Counselor Walker?
Yes.
Counselor Staples?
Yes.
Counselor Gary?
Yes.
Counselor Whiting?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Last open session of the night. If there's anybody in the public that would like to speak about something that is not on tonight's agenda, please step to the podium, give us your name, address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. None being, I'll bring it back to the council. Reports, mayor's report, none. City council reports, any? None. Go to
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Walker, Mr. Walker.
I don't really have a report, but I'd like to comment on the ice arena. The ice arena was built, I can't remember now what year, but we'll say 5, 6, 7 years ago. And at that time, all of the community thought there was going to be public skating more than 1 hour a week. For a long time, we followed that. And then I guess, the building, like anything else, got into trouble, needed to put in other things to make more money. But I really wish that this council would think about how could we do something to bring more ice skating to that facility for the kids that want to do public skating, especially during spring, summer, fall, because there is no ice on any pond in Auburn or Lewiston at that time. So
I would hope not.
I think we need to bring back that, and that was part of the reason for building this facility.
Very good, thank you. Any other reports? None being, okay, Mr. Manager?
Just a couple of things, Mayor. From our last workshop, one thing I did not get to was talking about the budget schedule, so I just want to make sure everybody's clear. So tonight at the April 4th workshop, we talked about the preliminary budget review and discussion, as well as the CIP 5-year plan. We ran out of time when it came to the FY23 CIP. That will be part of the discussion on April 19th. One thing that we will do is we'll discuss the final budget, any changes from now until the next meeting, and as well as hopefully a lot more time for you to be able to discuss the budget, as well as during the meeting, there'll be the adoption of the CIP 5-year plan. And then we'll also review the FY23 CIP. May 2nd is the public hearing, first reading and appropriation resolve for the CIP, for the budget and the CIP bonding. And then May 16th will be the adoption of the school budget, second reading, appropriation resolve, and CIP bonding. You will see the school budget numbers, I believe. We'll see that on April 19th. So that'll be part of the city manager's final budget and for your discussion. As the mayor mentioned at the meeting, there is room there for a special meeting if the council so desires to be able to discuss anything further. But we'll continue working on that schedule.
Thank
You
you.
will receive your budget books probably midweek next week. So you'll have those before the 19th to be able to take a look and go through your full books.
Very good. Okay, no other reports. Next, actually, we have an executive session. One we skipped, we should have had it earlier, but we ran out of time. That's fine. It'll be brief. It's on, economic development matter pursuant to 1 MRSA, section 405. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion Walker, second Gary. All those in favor? There'll be no action to follow. This will be the last thing we do before adjournment. Thank you very much. I will ask Ms. Eastman to stay here till the very end. She's ignoring me. Thank you all. Have a great night.